The Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for the regularly scheduled meeting of December 19th, 2019. My name is Emily Lamb, and I will be presenting the cases to the board today for their review in today's public hearing. Members of the public at this time, please take a minute to turn off or otherwise silence your cell phones or other devices so that the board can consider cases without interruption. For these public hearings, the board reviews the correspondence submitted in support of and opposition to these cases. The board also reviews correspondence and recommendations from other government agencies in preparation for the hearings. In today's hearing, staff will present the site plans, maps, photographs, and other documents that comprise the case record. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the appellant will present his or her case to the board. After the appellant's presentation, the board will hear those wishing to speak in support of the appeal. If the appeal has opposition, the board will then hear from those parties. After the opposition presents its testimony, the appellant will have a period for rebuttal. According to the BZA rules, the appellant has 5 minutes for presentation if no opposition is present. In contested cases, the BZA rules allow 10 minutes for each side to present the testimony. Should the appellant wish to provide rebuttal testimony, the appellant should reserve some portion of the allotted 10 minutes. One announcement with respect to time, our clock is broken, so Jessica Shepard, part of code staff, there it goes. One of the staff members here will be keeping track of the clock, and she will announce a 2-minute warning. So when you're coming up on your time, Ms. Shepard will interrupt to let you know the time is at 2 minutes. This is really loud. At the conclusion of each hearing, the board will deliberate and then vote on that case. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases under the provisions of the Metro Zoning Code, Section 1740-180. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Metro Zoning Code, which applies to the entire jurisdiction of the metropolitan government. The Zoning Code was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective on January 1st, 1998. I will introduce the entire Zoning Code and make it a part of today's record. The Metro Code requires a record of these proceedings. Because BZA meetings are recorded for Metro Nashville Network, it's imperative that anyone addressing the board please come forward, sit at the table, and speak into the microphone. All speakers should identify themselves by name and address before making the desired presentation. The Metro Code requires 4 members of our 7-member board to establish a quorum. The code also requires at least 4 affirmative votes to grant an appeal. In the event that 5 or more members are present, but the appeal fails to receive 4 affirmative votes, the case will remain open on the board's agenda for the next 30 days. Applications that fail to receive 4 affirmative votes within 30 days of the public hearing shall be deemed denied by operation of law. Pursuant to board rules, an aggrieved party may appeal board decisions to Chancery or Circuit Court within 60 days of the entry of a BZA order. Additionally, as per the BZA rules, an aggrieved party may file a motion for rehearing by the BZA within 60 days of the original hearing date. After that time elapses, the board's decision becomes final and no further action can be taken. If your appeal is granted, you are required to obtain the permit for which you applied. A permit must be obtained within 2 years for board approval to remain valid. It should also be noted that if false or misleading testimony is presented to the board, any board approval could be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing before the BZA. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all appellants have been notified by certified mail, and all legal notice requirements have been fulfilled. Before we move on to the specific cases for this agenda, the Director of the Department, Bill Herbert, would like to address the board.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. I was sadly informed this morning that today would be the last meeting for Ms. Chapel. I wanted to step over and personally thank you for your service to this board. I want to let you know how much I appreciate your wisdom and the way that you so carefully considered each case that came before this board. Thank you for your service to this board and this great city. Thanks to all the board members for what you all do. I know it's quite the commitment, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you. You all have a very Merry Christmas and a safe and very happy holiday season.
All right, thank you. Well, it is a sad day, and so we do appreciate everything Cindy's done. And for those of you who are in the audience and wonder how we get here, each of us at some point in time is appointed by whoever's the mayor at the time and elected by the city council or confirmed by the city council. And it's a 5-year term, and some folks can serve a second 5-year term, which Cindy's in the middle of her second 5-year term. So are you 6 years, 7 years? How long have you? Almost 8 years. So I think you came on right after I did. And it's an all-volunteer position, and it meets twice a month, and it's a really super, it's a great thing in terms of service to the city, but it's also a really enormous time commitment. But we sure do appreciate you. We're going to miss you. And so I will miss your conciseness of when I ramble like I'm starting to sound like I am now, you will come out with a little bit of a very short sentence to sum it all up. And it's like, yeah, well, we should have said that first. It would have saved us all a lot of time, but we will surely miss you.
And Ms. Chappell, on behalf of the remainder of the code staff, I would certainly reiterate what Mr. Herbert and Mr. Taylor have said. We have appreciated your service very much. You should. Mr. Chairman, I have 2 preliminary announcements regarding deferrals and withdrawals. First, case 2019-478 has been deferred to January 16. And second, case 2019-508 has been deferred to January 16. So that's 478 and 508. For members of the public, our board utilizes a consent agenda at each of its meetings. One board member reviews the record for each case prior to the hearing and identifies those cases which meet the criteria for the requested action by the appellant. If the reviewing board member determines that testimony in the case would not alter the material facts in any substantial way, the case is recommended to the board for approval. We'll enter into the record those cases that have been so recommended, and if anyone is here in opposition, please raise your hand, make sure I see you, and we'll pull the case off the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Please note that on any sidewalk case that is placed on the consent agenda, the applicant has agreed to planning's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, these are the cases that have been recommended for the consent agenda. First, case 2019-512 involving property at 115 Lyle Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 2019-512?
Opposition, was just curious what it's about.
Invite him to step out and speak with the appellants on that, so we don't report from consent.
You might want to, you can speak, step out and speak with the appellant on that, and then do you want to keep it on consent, or?
We'll just come back to it and not put it on this consent.
So we'll take it off consent for the time being. You can speak with the appellant, and then we'll move it back to the consent at a later date. So is the appellant here on that case? There you are. If y'all could speak out, reach over and talk to him, maybe go outside if y'all want to talk to them, and we may be able to get it back on the consent agenda. Next case, 2019-513, involving property at 2717 McCampbell Avenue. Is there? So we will pull that one off of the agenda. Off of the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Have you seen planning's recommendation that they contribute, that they do an alternative design?
I did not find the plans in my research.
All right, you might want to also speak to the appellant and see if that's something that you can, so that one might also go back on the consent agenda. We'll take it off temporarily. And then finally, case 2019-516 involving property at 516B 27th Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 516? Seeing none, that one will remain on the consent agenda. The other 2 may go back, but at this point, it's appropriate to take have a motion on case 516.
So we will move 516 for the consent agenda. There's a motion, there's a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That case passed.
Members of the public, if your case was just approved on the consent, you're free to go. Please give our staff until Monday to process all the documentation associated with your appeal, at which point you can come into the office to pursue the permits for which you applied. Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the cases to be heard, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize any elected officials who are in attendance. Council Lady Roberts, would you like to speak now or wait till the case is called?
I'll wait till the case is called.
And I saw Councilman Syracuse here. I think he might have been here on that sidewalk case, so we'll, he wants to wait. So we'll wait until that case comes up. Councilman Nash is also here, but he has indicated that he would like to wait till his case comes up. So absent any other announcements, we're ready to proceed with the docket.
Okay, first case.
Councilman Nash has some pictures for me to put in. Before I do that, I want to just refresh the board's recollection on this case. This is a case that was previously granted with respect to a special exception for a religious charity to operate. You did defer it for consideration of two particular conditions regarding a traffic plan related to children's safety as well as the maximum number of children that are allowed. So this is the property at issue 650 Putnam Drive. No, I'm sorry. (4908) Aquatic Drive. So this is the property at issue for you to consider today. And I will pull up Councilman Nash's photographs.
Yeah.
Is this it? Councilman Nash, is
Top
that
one.
first PDF?
Yes, the Aquatic Drive. It'll be the tail end of the. In spite of some of the heated rhetoric concerning this particular proposal, the safety of the children here is the primary concern, and the traffic plan and the attendance are directly affect that safety. I took my wife out. This is Whispering Hills Drive. There's another picture down below where you get a little closer. There's only like 15 inches of, that's Millerwood, next one down, I'm sorry. There's only like 15 inches of roadway left, and then you're in the ditch or somebody's yard. The next, back again to, and this is on Whispering Hills. Whispering Hills has already, as we mentioned earlier, been designated by Public Works as in need of traffic calming based upon the amount of traffic, the speed of the traffic accidents and the like. This, if you turn the corner coming from Tusculum School down McMurray to Whispering Hills, and then the first turn to get to the school is on Millerwood. This is a picture of Millerwood, and there's kind of no a berm, no lines. And then if you'll notice, there's an MPH sign there indicating the Public Works has already been over there and tried to do a few things to slow people down. So there is a traffic issue there to be dealt with. The last meeting you requested that I meet with Mr. McDonald in Cottage Cove to see if we couldn't come to some agreement on the issue of the traffic plan and on the total attendance. We met on November 25th at one of the centers of hospitality in our district, the Barbecuity, and had I thought, a fairly cordial but frank discussion about, we need some movement, we need some structure, and we threw some ideas back and forth, and I offered to have Mr. McDonald send kind of the first proposal. On December 3rd, I did get such a proposal, and I've sent kind of the correspondence, email correspondence that we had back and forth along with my letter, so that you'd have some insights into what was proposed and what the counter proposal was. The neighborhood, and I tend to agree, found again there's still a real lack of scope and structure in Cottage Cove's proposal. We propose that we'll make the multi-person vehicle the kind of first way to get kids to and from, but we still kind of leave open all this walking, and then we talk about the fact that walking will be done with how do you say, in a supervised manner commensurate with the number of students to be escorted. Well, I don't know what supervised manner commensurate means, and we kind of hope we would get some description of that. And then we have a proposal of an enrollment of 48, which would mean that typical attendance would be 34, some days would be 36. And again, we think that attendance is going to be way too high, especially given that we won't commit to using the multi-person vehicles to get to and from. We've got trying to get 36 kids or 34 kids, whatever the case may be, in and out of this facility, not to mention. And then we talk about what it means to escort the children. And I went to my expert, my wife, and I said, how old would you think a child should be before we'd even contemplate letting them walk around from Tusculum School, Whispering Hills, Millerwood, and the like? And she said, maybe 13. And then Cottage Cove has also talked about starting out with kindergartners, first graders. And so I know any of the kindergartners that I know, and certainly any child that I had in kindergarten, if we're going to walk a half a mile, it's going to be really supervised. And we suggested that we have one adult for each two children, a hand on each one on this very narrow roadway to ensure that we've got some modicum of safety here. Our first choice would be not walking at all with kids that age at this particular location. But if we've got to have a walk, then we need to have it supervised. I got an email back after sending that counter proposal, pretty much stating that, well, we just don't think we're getting anywhere. There was some reference here that I had suggested we might go as high as 30. That was certainly true in our discussions at the barbecue. Again, that was in some contemplation, though, that most of those kids are going to get there via the multi-purpose vehicle. So at the end of the day, the neighborhood, I think, is justified in the proposals that we outlined that Cottage Cove make its multi-passenger vehicles the primary means of transportation both to and from Tusculum School, or if they've got a church nearby where they pick up the kids and the like, is appropriate for the safe and efficient egress and ingress of children, especially these grade school aged children. Likewise, if for some reason the truck breaks down, we still have, and parents have agreed to let their children walk that distance, that they be accompanied by a responsible person age 18 or older. And likewise, in the event if children are going to be walking from Tusculum School, that any kindergartners, that there at least be one adult for every two children. We think that's reasonable given the highways there have been deemed risky. There's the lifespan of mailboxes in that particular area are very short, and we don't want children to be subjected potentially to that kind of danger. So we think both of those proposals are reasonable. If we can use the multi-vehicle to get people in and out of there, it cuts down on the traffic in and out on Aquatic Drive. It cuts down on the danger of the children, and some of these other issues go away.
Thank you. Councilman, can you, because I don't know this area other than the pictures and what's been testified, if you were a child walking from Tusculum School, I think you'd mentioned the streets, but could you tell us what is the path? And I think both of these streets where you measured were included in that path. Is that correct?
That's the shortest path between the Aquatic Drive, Cottage Cove, and Tusculum School. You start at Tusculum School. There is a sidewalk to the corner of Whispering Hills. And then you turn right on Whispering Hills, right, the picture back. And can you get back one picture? I think you'll see the street sign just barely. just barely, there's about where that car is, there's a right-hand turn there for Millerwood, and Millerwood's where you see the MPH 30 miles per hour sign written on the highway. And then that goes directly into Aquatic Drive, just about where the Cottage Cove sits across the street.
And then,
That's a half a mile from door to door by my vehicle's odometer.
okay. Are there any questions for the councilman? All right, well, you are welcome to weigh in at any time as an elected council person. That per our rules, there's no time limit on you or what you have to say. So if you want to come back and clarify at any time in the hearing, you're certainly welcome to. And we appreciate you getting involved the way
We
you have.
thank your time.
All right, so we will hear now from the applicant. And is there opposition to this case present? So we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear from opposition. Each side has 10 minutes, and you will be given a 2-minute warning since we don't have the active clock going. And sir, and welcome back. And if you would state your name and address, and then I think the two outstanding issues were number of a traffic plan and number of kids. And so I'm not, if you could talk about what that specific plan is and proposal for children, that would be wonderful.
Okay. My name is Brent McDonald, and I'm representing Cottage Cove for 4908 Aquatic Road. And as requested by this board, we welcome the opportunity to meet with Councilor Robert Nash to see if a negotiated agreement was possible. Unfortunately, the opposing group he represents appeared to be unwilling to negotiate in good faith. They wanted numbers just restricted further than where we even started, either wanting that or to revisit the special exemption already granted. While we were willing to compromise to the point of viability, they were unwilling to move at all on the numbers. And as we provided them, I now present to you the minimum enrollment and attendance necessary for viable ministry at this location. To be accountable to our financial supporters who enable us to offer these free daily programs, we must justify the facility overhead costs plus the paid staffing necessary in terms of the number of students being served and volunteers coordinated. Below these amounts, this ministry location isn't viable and can't maintain supporters, volunteers, or the grants necessary to facilitate the staffing, a quality program, and our fixed cost per square foot. We can limit our attendance at this location to not exceed 36 students in daily program. This is based on a maximum overall enrollment across all ages of 48 students, something that will take a few years to attain as we start with a small number and develop a positive peer group over time as the students age upward in our program. Again, a 48 enrollment enables a workable daily program attendance cap of 36 students, since enrolled elementary students have a minimum 3 days per week attendance requirement, and middle school students maintain 2 days per week. So that's why it doesn't go up to the 48, it works out to being 36. And then, as we were erroneously likened to a daycare in the past hearing, and even characterized as an after-school program that happened to be religious, I'd like to actually submit our charter and bylaws. Because it's necessary to point out that Cottage Cove is a religious organization that chooses to have life skills, education, and arts electives. As federally recognized, we are a non-standard church for youth and children. Our offered educational opportunities are firstly Christian. The only non-optional or unconditional part of our program is Bible study, which includes worship, prayer, and music. Our purpose for homework help, life skills, and visual and musical arts is that these students learn how to do these and to thrive in life, all to God's glory. In fact, Cottage Cove has never accepted government or other funding that would limit our ability to share Christ, whether in the homework room or on our playground. Cottage Cove's executive director is a ministerial position authorized for church ordinances and the overall spiritual care of the program and its participants, and oftentimes that of their families. This includes baptisms and weddings. In addition, all other paid staff must also be Christians who, together with our board of directors, subscribe to a common statement of faith and a religious code of conduct. So with that in mind, returning to the topic of capacity, Cottage Cove safely cares for the children and youth attending its programs by following all relevant laws, plus by voluntarily maintaining and normally exceeding supervision ratios we are not bound to. I assure this board our offered 36 student cap maximum is far below fire marshal occupancy maximums for assembly groups and places of worship in a 3,000 square foot building. And if you'd like to, I have a copy of the International Building Code that actually shows that. I can pass that to you as well. Again, though not state regulated, as the state has seen fit to exempt after-school programs, whether educational, social, cultural, or religious, primarily because they only care for school-aged children for a fraction of the time a daycare does, take note that Cottage Cove's staffing ratio voluntarily meets or exceeds all adult-to-child ratios defined by Tennessee's licensure rules for child care agencies. And I brought that with me. I'll actually submit that one as well. Per that state regulation that we are not bound by, and specifically as we don't allow preschool students to attend our programs, for those regulated, state law mandates a 1-to-20 ratio with no maximum group size. I assure you that our 36-student cap is an easily maintainable number that will have supervision well in excess of what state regulations provide as a minimum for student safety for those regulated. Also related to safety and maximum attendance is parking capacity. Metro Code staff have repeatedly informed us that the standard ratio for parking is 1 paved and lined parking spot per 4 people in the building. That would be 52 people for our 13 existing spots, not using our garage. And our proposed maximum program capacity of 36 children and youth would never exceed this. The children we serve don't drive, so parking is primarily very short term for student pickup and an occasional student parental drop-off. We've already committed to you that we will not park on the street as is currently signed no parking. We offered in our proposal to the counselor that should our parking proofs insufficient, we will alter our program, assuring that no on-street congestion is created at pickup time. This could include staggered dismissal times for the students if necessary, and will include carpooling of staff and volunteers. We already have agreement with a nearby church to utilize their weekday parking for this purpose as necessary. From discussion with the counselor, those opposing neighbors seem concerned that our driveway has only one combined entrance and exit to our parking. Thinking that this would somehow cause congestion, we gladly offer widening our driveway at the street to allow simultaneous entrance and exit of the few vehicles into our parking area. As for transportation, as is already mentioned, pickup is primarily via parents. 25 years of program shows us that many families share pickup rather than having to come individually to pick up their children. Further, as our program grows over time, where younger siblings are automatically the next eligible for enrollment, most parents are picking up multiple students even from the same family. Again, this is why we can easily guarantee that we will have sufficient parking for the very short amount of time necessary for daily pickup. For Cottage Cove's direct pickup of students at Tusculum Elementary, we will offer that we will use our multi-passenger vehicles as our only means of transportation, as long as we can have sufficient number of students to maintain the costs of maintaining vehicles for doing that.
How do you figure that out? That sounds like a promise you're not promising to keep.
Oh, in what way?
You said, well, we'll use our passenger vehicle, but only if we have enough kids to support it.
If this board grants that we can do the 36 students, we've said that's a viable number for being able to maintain the costs of overhead.
Right.
So what I'm saying is...
I guess I'm thinking of these separately a little bit.
The two are tied together for us because it means that we have to be a viable ministry. We have to be able to viably be able to operate.
And when you talk about viable, you're talking about financial viability?
Yes.
Okay, so in what you said is you have to have an enrollment of 48 to be financially viable?
Yes.
So and what the neighborhood is asking for is that you reduce your enrollment to 25 students. Why won't your cost also be reduced?
Because we have fixed and static costs, including the vehicles.
So
we have static costs, including maintaining 3,000 square feet of building. We also have the question of, and beyond the financial side, maintaining the volunteer base that we need. And volunteers will give of their time to help a certain number of kids. As soon as you go below that, you're having trouble maintaining the volunteers that you'd need as well.
So what are your approximate fixed costs per month? Is the building paid for?
We have purchased the building, yes.
So there's no lease, there's no mortgage, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so what are your major fixed costs?
Everything from lighting, heating.
So utilities?
Maintenance, all of the usual things that go into owning a property.
Okay, so I would expect, since the building's paid for and you're paying utilities, that your your main cost is going to be supervision for the children. Would that be
Yeah,
fair to say?
we have to have static number of fixed paid employees to be able to do that too, and we have to justify that across how many students are being served.
Okay.
Yeah, we're responsible to our donors.
If you reduce the enrollment from 48 to 25, won't you necessarily reduce the number of people you have to have watching over the children?
Not at the downward side, there's a certain point you need to have a minimum of 2 people there at all times. So you automatically, I can't, like, even if I went down to 6 kids, I'd still have to have at least 2 people. So my costs don't exponentially decrease.
So how many have you figured for 48 children? How many staff people?
Well, we'll have a minimum of 2 paid staff there. Typically 2.5 would be the normal at that location. And then beyond that, volunteers. And again, adult volunteers are the bulk of our support.
Okay. And you don't have to pay the volunteers anything, right? That's why they're
No,
volunteers.
but they're generously giving of their time, as is the city is known for.
And they're the bulk of who's watching the children?
Yes.
Okay.
And providing for our programs, because they're the ones actually coming in to help us to teach those programs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So in this, basically what I'm saying is that because there seems to be great concern over walking, and we've had 25 years of safely walking kids in sidewalked and non-sidewalked areas, we've decided to pull that completely and offer to do it via vehicles at all times at this location, and to take care of that safety issue completely. So there's no question on that.
No walking at all?
No. So if we're picking up the children at Tusculum Elementary, we're taking our vehicles to do that. And that would reduce, minimal number of trips. As I say, parents coming to pick up would gladly widen the driveway so we can have simultaneous in and out on that. Parking would be well accounted for the number of parents that are picking up. And as I say, if necessary, we've already told the neighborhood we'd even alter the way our program operated as necessary to make sure that there would be no congestion on the street in front of us. And then for our volunteers, we've offered that we can carpool. We have parking that's nearby a local church. We actually have 2 churches that are talking about making that available to us, that our volunteers can park there and then carpool together, so we're not taking up our parking for our volunteers. So in summary, for both transportation and for the number of students, we've given you what would be viable and meets or exceeds safety as defined by the state for supervision.
Do you think that you'll have, what number of children do you think you'll have immediately? 36, or do you think you'll have?
No, we start usually with younger age ranges and then build them up, because that's how you end up with a positive peer group that runs all the way through. So it's going to take time for that to build up. Even if we started, and again, we restrict how many kindergartners. On a program of that size, it's probably 2 or 3 kindergartners maximum at any given time. Kindergartners are high maintenance. And then you go grade 1, grade 2. As they move up through the age range, you add in on the lower side of that until you have students running up through middle school.
And so what would the objection be to, if it's going to be a buildup, to say, in order to help kind of alleviate some of the concerns that the neighbors have, to say, well, let's do 25 for the first year, and then, or however long you think it's going to take to build up to 30 or 36, and then we can have a condition that you are eligible to reapply without a fee. I think we can do that so that you don't have to go through, it doesn't incur a cost other than the time to come back and say, hey, we've grown, we're being responsible, there's not a safety issue that people express now, and we'd like to increase that to the 36 that's our maximum capacity.
The concern we would have from legal advice is that it would make it difficult for us to appeal this legally if that was bound out, because we're supposed to appeal within 60 days, and we would end up trying to appeal the original ruling.
On the basis of not getting what you wanted, or what? It sounds like you're not going to be at that capacity. It sounds like you've agreed to. These aren't things imposed upon you. You've volunteered this, that you're going to have a van to transport all the.
Right, but I'm
recognizing that there is and it sounds like that is in recognition of the street condition that was presented by the council
Right,
member.
But I'm talking, you talked about restricting our number of students, and that I have not agreed to restrict beyond 36. Now, if it's within that number, which we know is viable, then I would have no opposition whatsoever. There'd be no reason to appeal this.
Okay. Even though it'll take probably the entire court cycle for you to ramp up to that period before you come back here. All right, I just want to know where you are, and you told me, so continue.
Sir, you have 2 minutes remaining.
Yeah, that's all I had, unless you had questions.
Question also, are you, I don't know if it's been discussed, that you would also transport the children back to the elementary school for pickup potentially to cut down on the parent pickup in your neighborhood, particularly if you're at the numbers that you want?
We've never transported back after program. It's impractical, and it's actually, I'm not even sure the school would want that as well, because we'd use their property after hours in a way that they normally would not do that.
Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about meeting somewhere else other than having 48 families drive into the neighborhood to pick up children.
Well,
Just trying to think
first
about
off, there
that.
would never be 48. 36 is the number that we had said
Okay.
that would work out to. And again, we know from 25 years of doing this that that would be less than half that number of cars. And I say less than because the majority of families tend to have 3 or 4 that they're picking up at a time.
Okay.
So the 36 number is the maximum number of children there at any one day or any one time. How many kids would cycle through? Is that the most you'd ever have in a day?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we operate as an after-school
And then how
program.
many staff? You said 2.5 permanent folks, but how many, if you had 36 kids, you'd expect 40-ish people there with adults?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the day for what electives are being offered, but I mean, there could be 5 or 6 more volunteers beyond that.
Okay, so 42 or 3 people
Yeah.
would be expected?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, which is well within capacities for building codes and other things that we stipulated the last time.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, you've got
2 minutes.
2 minutes left for rebuttal after we hear from the opposition. Is that me?
From the opposition.
Well, yes, sir, yeah, well.
So is there
Any of the-
anyone in
any of the-
opposition to the case that would like, y'all can come to the table
Yeah,
if you'd like to
anybody
speak.
in
and
opposition, any neighbors or
Councilman Nash, you can always speak
other
as well.
people that you can come up, and Councilmember Nash, you certainly can talk at any point. If you want to lead, if you want to start off with comments, that's certainly fine,
I'm
or
not going to let him.
hold them till
use time on him.
whenever you'd like.
So I thought.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful just to kind of respond to, great minds work alike, as I had suggested after Mr. McDonald sent me the email saying he was pretty frustrated and think anybody was negotiating. He said, well, look, it's going to take you a while to build up this program. How about agreeing to the limit of 25 for a short time and see if after you build up to that, that might give you time to ensure the neighbors that everything's going to be done, not be a big disturbance to the neighborhood. And I didn't get a response back to that, so I'm not sure. But it's a couple of things. Although they are not a daycare and they are adamant about not being declared a daycare, because I suspect that would require some additional rules, when we were last here, it was suggested that because it is so much like a daycare, that at least the rules applying to daycare are somewhat informative, if not totally controlling. And that's one of the reasons we suggested that 25 was the reasonable number, because that's what the state, 13 to 25 is what the state had proposed. Also, not to be confused, the 48 and the 25 don't necessarily go together. Enrollment, total enrollment is he can have anything he wants. 25 is how many can attend at any given time maximum. So, and again, part of the problem in my discussions with Mr. McDonald was I generally know how many people are going to show up when I was commander over the East Precinct, because we schedule folks. And I had suggested to Mr. McDonald that, Jimmy can be scheduled Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and so we could have some real firm idea of how many to expect. And obviously, there's going to be a few people that get sick, and the person that says, well, look, can I trade Monday for Tuesday this week, and those kinds of things. So I understand that you need a little flexibility. So all that to say, we think 25 is still reasonable for the max at any given time. Again, you're talking another 4 or 5 people. And again, I'm disappointed because it's the first time I've actually heard Mr. McDonald say that, in fact, we will just pick up the kids at Tusculum using the van. I think it's also important that he also have a deal with many of the parents to to drop them off over there too at the end of that session. I think that's a reasonable ask. And then it's the first time we've heard about the carpooling for the counselors and the like at the program. So that's, I think, a plus in their proposal. I wish we could have discussed this earlier. Yeah.
I have a question for the councilman. So if the transportation is addressed and there will not be walking children, the children will be transported in a multi-seat vehicle, is there still a concern about the number of people on site? I mean, doesn't that address your issue?
That addresses 90% of it from where I'm sitting. I'll let the neighbors speak for themselves, but yeah, I mean, that's the coming and going of cars, and that takes care of a bunch of it. So, yeah.
So the number 25 that's been thrown around for attendance at any one time, that's just a number chosen because? That
was the number that was suggested by one of your board members because it was in compliance with the daycare provisions in State Code 13 to 25 for a property, I think, of a half acre or something like that. And we thought that was, again, because there are so many similarities between this program and a daycare, we thought it at least was informative, if not controlling. That's kind of the 25 number, I think. And again, part of that based upon the fact that we're going to have all these cars coming in and out. If that's changed, then that lessens that concern, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Shelley Armstrong, and I'm at 4908 Millerwood Drive. And I just want to say, or sorry, 04. I just want to say that for the board to understand when they mention their other facilities and they mention their 25 years, their other facilities are nothing like this home in a residential area. They're in more of the urban core of the city with sidewalks in busier areas with commercial businesses around, churches around. One is a church right next door. So it's not really a fair comparison to the neighbors. And to say he's going to widen the driveway, our whole point was to try to keep the residential look of our neighborhood, and this clearly is going to look like, to people that don't know, a daycare with parents coming and dropping off kids and picking up kids and the added traffic. So I just wanted for that comparison to understand that the other facilities are nothing like this home in this neighborhood. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Ben Waller. I've lived there since 1960. I am 86 years old. I live on the corner across from this building that y'all are fixing to do. We have a problem. I done been down here once over the people that live across the street over there in that condo deal because they parked on our street and they blocked it. We couldn't get the school buses by. When you turn and go up Millerwood, every afternoon is 3 to 5 cars parked on the street. Buses can't hardly get through. So we would, up on North Crest, that street up there, that's a cut through for people that don't like to live in Davidson County. They don't want to live out in another city, another town. So it's cut through. So we have all kind of traffic up there. It turns right down by Tusculum School, hits Nolanson Road, goes on out, or it takes Old Hickory Boulevard and goes and hits the interstate. All we've done is create a bad problem over on that area. Now, I know that the guy probably is doing a good deal, but we wound up with a problem in that neighborhood. And I'm 86 years old, so I'm not going to have too many years to put up with it. I've been in the hospital 4 times this year. I've had 4 heart attacks. So it's costing me $2,800 a day, a week, just a month to just stay alive. But anyway, I'd appreciate it if y'all would do something with the traffic on up Millerwood. That goes up and hits Northcrest. That's a cut through. No way. I talked to my insurance agent the other day, and he said by the time them kids walk off that school property until they get to his property, it's no insurance. It's no insurance. Now, I don't know how many kids y'all gonna allow them to have. When we first started out with this, and I talked to them when they was out there, they said a few kids. So now then, this thing's went from a few kids up to 50, I understand. I don't know what to ask him.
Yeah, he's proposing 36.
So,
He is proposing 36 children.
to how many?
36.
36?
Yes, sir.
Well, 36 is a lot of people in there when when we can't hardly get the buses up and down the street in the afternoon and all, and that's in our busiest section when the school turns out. All them people pick them up, the kids and all that. So but it's up to y'all to do it. But then I'd just like to have your number, and then when something happens, I will give you a call. I've been down here before. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Megan Iyer-Terwilliger. I live in 4900 Millerwood Drive, which is the property directly across the street from 4908 Aquatic. And the way the houses are on the lots, it's such that my living room, my playroom, and all 3 bedrooms in my home look over my yard straight into 4908 Aquatic. And I'm glad to hear that the safety of the children walking is being addressed already. I think it's important for a nonprofit that purports to support a community and children in this school take the utmost responsibility to get those kids to and from that facility safely. One concern that I have that hasn't already been mentioned today is what it says in the bylaws. In the bylaws that are found on their website, it says that the executive director is responsible for overseeing the inner city outreach. And while their model may work just fine in the inner city where there are sidewalks, crosswalks, and traffic lights, our 4908 Aquatic isn't in the inner city. It's in a suburb of Nashville. And our suburb is currently existing just fine as that. And if we didn't function well, we wouldn't be here grouped together in opposition. We did not go looking for our neighborhood to become part commercial and part residential. And I think it's important to say that we did not go looking for this confrontation. We had serious concerns and some questions about what was going on. And I'm concerned about a nonprofit operating across the street from my home that has not offered specific solutions and specific numbers about the questions we've had.
I'm going to ask you this because we did hear, we heard a lot more specific language today than is frankly in the presentation or that we heard before. So I understand had you made it 35, 40 minutes ago, I understand your comment. What we have today, though, are 2 very specific things from the applicant. One is a maximum number of 36 students, and also that there would be no walking. The students would not be walking, that their vans would transport the students at least to the facility. That's what the applicants agreed to. Now, the council member has asked us to consider, and we'll talk to the applicant again about busing them back in their vans. But right now, the applicant has agreed to not having any children walk, that all kids will be bused to the facility, and that the maximum is 36. That's what we're talking about. So that seems fairly specific. So what additional information or concerns do you have about that proposal? Because, I mean, I think, and again, and this isn't directed at you, it's just a general reminder to everybody that this board has allowed them the use based on state and federal law, as you heard at the last hearing, the ability to use this facility in the way that, in their after-school program. And so the only issue we have at hand now is that dealing with the safety issue for the children, which I think you heard from this board was very much agreed upon, that we felt like that there was a serious safety issue. The applicants addressed that by saying they're not going to have the children walk. And then the other issue is the 36, which to me is a little bit related to the safety issue. And so
Sure.
but that's really, those are really the only two issues right now that we need your feedback on, because everything else, has either been settled or is really out of our hands.
I'm going to jump in if that's okay, and I'm going to speak for my neighbors. This is the
If you could
first-
state your name and
I'm
address.
Jennifer Polk, and I'm at 4908 Millerwood Drive. Yes, we are very happy to hear the specifics. This is the first time we've heard those. So a lot of our conversations, presentations, wanting to get up in front of you were before those numbers, right? We agree completely and are good with the transportation as long as it follows through. We don't really know how to come back and tell somebody, hey, he said he's going to drive them, but 4 days last week he walked. We like the idea. We're okay with the idea of driving. That is what our ultimate goal was. So we can agree on that one. As long as we would like some of you guys' input on who do we call when it's not working, because we really don't have a clue. Or how do we say he's not doing that? As far as kids, 25 made the most logical sense. Just brief background, started at 6 and 7. Those were his initial conversations. We got maybe 24 max in a few years, and then it was 20 at our community meeting. So we sat 15 in our initial letter to you guys. Then you guys said 15. We said, yep, okay, we can come up to that. In good faith, we agree that that makes logical sense. So that's where we were at. 36, 48 all came from the email. It was given to us. We were like, whoa, that still feels really high because you're talking just 2 toilets. It's old infrastructure, and he's not agreeing at this time to drive them every day. It was worded in a way that says we might determine when we might want to walk them. Okay.
So what if they agree to 36 would be the maximum at any time, and they will
Right.
provide that they're, and you talked about the driving,
Right.
but let's be specific. What if
Right.
they agree that they'll make sure that the children are driven there,
And
and
taken
then
out.
so that you don't have
Right.
36 parents coming to pick kids up, that the children will be transported back to
Yeah, then I would be
someplace
okay
to be
with
picked
36.
up? Is
I
that?
think we would agree 36 is be fine. Our goal is not to stop the mission, which has been implied, but to that this is our everyday life. This is where I reside. I look out my front door, this is what I see. So it is our interest of our community to try to maintain these things. I think we would be okay with 36 if we knew that parents were not coming into the neighborhood, because although he does state that several kids be picked up, our experience at Tusculum over the last 11 years, it's maybe 2 siblings, but there are not a ton of multi-families being picked up. So 36 is not going to be picked up by 10 cars like they stated. It would be more. Then you have the volunteers. We are against completely making the driveway bigger. I do understand that fixes his need. It does. It addresses that. It does not address the community's concern about staying residential.
Yeah, I don't think he had any interest in making the driveway bigger. I understood that as a response to what he said was the neighborhood
Right,
concerns about
right.
wanting
Agreed,
more safety
agreed.
in the driveway. So he said we would make it bigger, and then
Right.
y'all don't want, so I mean, and I get why you wouldn't want to make it
Right,
bigger, but
exactly.
it seemed like, from my hearing of what he said, that was a response to
Absolutely.
your concern.
And I understand why he's saying that. We would just not be for that because
Okay.
of the way it would look. But I
Right,
think
so-
we could agree with 36 if the in and out was addressed with the multi-purpose vans at
All
all
right, so
times.
basically, we're down, well, and we can hear from the applicant, but it sounds like the neighbors and the applicant are down to one issue, and we'll hear from him, and that is he willing to drive the kids back in the van to pick up at Tusculum? And I think he expressed a reluctance for that when it was mentioned, but we'll hear from him in a second. But it sounds like everything else is agreeable. Is that fair to the folks at the table? Not that this is a negotiating
Right, but
board, but,
it's at
you know,
least a first start. It's the
but
farthest we've been in a while.
if it keeps us from deferring this again to work things
Right.
out, that would be great. But I just want to make sure I understand where everybody's coming from.
So, and I think one thing that has to be considered is, we're talking, you mentioned a van. If you have a maximum capacity one day of 36 children, I don't think you're going to get 36 children in even the biggest van. So you're either going to be making,
3 or 4
a
trips.
couple of trips,
Yeah.
or 3 trips, or they're going to have more vans. So how are y'all on that?
I mean, we don't love it, but we have to, right? I mean, we're kind of at a situation where.
We're
what-
forced to.
Right, we're at what are the least, what is the.
Well, if it were a couple vans and maybe
Yeah, I
one
mean,
made 2 trips.
In a perfect
or-
world, the vans that would probably sit there would have some more covering or something so that when you drive in our neighborhood, you don't see them. But yes, the best thing for us is the kids to be safe, and the kids are safer in a car. And if that means that we have to look at vans, then we have to look at vans.
All right. Tom, did you have a question?
I've been sitting back here listening. Have you all been to the same meetings? I mean, I'm hearing a disconnect
know.
between the two sides, and I'm having a real difficult time understanding everybody's been sitting in the same room and having discussions.
Can I address that?
It's almost like a council meeting.
May I address that for just a second?
I mean,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, is that a yes?
Yeah, state your name and address.
My name is Jamie Lockmiller. I live at 4908 Millerwood. The first meeting we had at Tusculum, Mr. McDonald indicated that he would start out with 6 or 7 kids, and we doubled it to 15. And next thing we knew, it went up to 20. So we're all confused as much as you are, because we have never gotten any concrete anything other than the concrete he put in that driveway. So we are confused as much as you are. That's why it always seems like we're saying something totally different than what he's saying, because we never get the straight answer.
Today is when we've heard the most.
Okay.
Even our presentations that have come via email have still been worded in a way that they very much keep the door open to do whatever it is that he wanted to do, while still there's a little bit appeasing us a little bit, but not really committing to fully doing what you had asked that we do as a plan.
Okay.
And the record supports that, because what we got before today was was very.
Right, agree.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Anything else?
I mean, I think we've addressed everything that we came up here. Our number one thing is safety, maintaining that residential feel as much as possible within the parameters that we can.
Okay.
And may I
Thank you.
add,
Yes, ma'am.
who will watch over to make sure that he doesn't go over? Because it seems like he
Well,
just
it's not
wants to
us.
do what he wants to do.
This board is just a board that makes decisions, and any decision that this board makes, it's expected that the person that's applicable to that decision follows the decision. If they don't, then depending upon what type of violation it is, you can, if it's noise, you call one group. But if it's direct violation of this decision, then you can call the codes office and say they're violating the decision, and you can have a show cause hearing, which means it comes back to this board and you prove they're violating the decision, and whoever's on the board at the time that happens will make a determination of whether or not the applicant is living up to those rules.
Thank you.
But that, again, it's a process. But you, again, if they're violating the rules that you hear today, you can talk to the codes office, and they can tell you if it's something that comes back here, if there's another person you need to call at Metro.
Thank you.
Anything else to add at this point? And Councilman, you can speak. The applicant can come back, and then you can have the last word, whatever you'd like. So, all right. Thank you, and we'll hear back from the applicant.
Tell your dad you got to get another motorcycle.
In answer to one thing that was asked, who do they talk to if they could think that we're in any way in violation, I'd hope they talk to me.
Absolutely right.
Because at that point, we keep our word. If we have offered to do something, we do that. And
Right.
we have 25 years of evidence behind that. So.
And I'm assuming you probably currently keep a daily log of the children that attend the school. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, and you would continue to maintain that?
Yes.
And it would be no problem to make that available at any time?
The possibility exists for that. There is privacy issues, but I wouldn't necessarily make that readily available to the neighborhood. But that would be something that if this board needed to see it again, I could do it in a setting that would allow you to verify that.
Okay, but you keep a log of the children that are there every day, I'm assuming?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and the time they come in and the time they leave?
Yes.
Okay.
And as well as keeping track of the volunteers that are in the building as well.
Yeah. So the only thing that was really the neighbors, and again, I don't know the history. I can kind of sense a little bit of it back and forth from all the correspondence that's been part of the record. And frankly, it's neither here nor there, because what we're trying to get to is something today that we can agree to. And you all have agreed that you will only use the your transportation, your vans to transport the students from the school to your facility. And they have said that if you would also take them back to the facility and eliminate the traffic, that they don't have any issue with the 36. And I know originally I think that when that was suggested, maybe by the councilman, I saw a reaction that you weren't totally comfortable with that. Could you address that piece of it, whether or not you'd be willing to drive the kids in the van back to the school or another location for pickup?
Well, if there was facility at the school where they'd have a place to be inside, the problem is if I'm doing pickup in a parking lot, I've got to be able to, the parent that doesn't show up on time, you're sitting there for 20 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes waiting for a parent. That's why we've never done drop off of kids, because you can't control the parents on that side.
Is there a specific time that
Why can't you control the parents? I mean, there are ways for you to put in procedures like a fine or making it clear to parents.
We have that, but what do you do that day that they don't do the pickup? You're sitting there for the next half hour, hoping that the other students that are still waiting for pickup, you don't have another vehicle to go back and get them. You would create a logistics nightmare.
Well, what do you do when the child is at your facility?
At the facility, then you start down a list of calling. You have emergency contacts, you call that. But again, when you call that emergency contact, it might be an extra half hour before someone shows up from that emergency contact.
But I think what we got to look at, I understand logistically it might be problematic, but the neighbors make a point. You're putting this mission into a neighborhood, and that's a new location for you, the best I can tell. You don't live there. They have expressed some legitimate concerns about traffic concerns and safety concerns of the children. I think it seems like we can get you to the point of your attendance numbers, but can you be more flexible on how we do the transfer at the end of the day? Emergencies are going to come up. I don't think the neighbors are going to call the police if you have one parent come pick up a child if that parent's late.
But I'm on the other side of this, that if you've already taken them out into a vehicle, let's say I'm doing it in the parking lot of Tusculum Elementary, even if they allow that, and I'm not sure the school would allow that, then you have the problem that you're sitting there with no ability, short of taking all the students back. Well, no, you still got some trying to get picked up. You have a major problem.
I know, but I think we have an interest, a compelling interest in making sure the best that we can that you are allowed to do what you're trying to achieve, and we are balancing that with the needs of the neighborhood. So if you could be a little more creative about how that works. It's your program. You can tell the parents what to do.
Which we do, but we also have reasonable expectations for the families that we serve. 25 years of experience answers a lot of questions.
Well, but so if you have children in the van and a parent doesn't show up like they're supposed to, you take the child back to your facility, which is where they would be if the parent didn't show up to pick them up at their facility. I do not see any issue with that. I understand that it might happen.
Well, it automatically doubled the number of adults I have to have in the vehicle because I can't transport a single child without multiple adults.
Without what?
Without multiple adults.
Why is that?
Safety. You don't transport a child by yourself. I can transport, if I have 14 kids in the vehicle, I can do that, but I cannot transport a child by themselves.
Educate me on that. Why is that? I've done that
These
before,
days, all
so
it takes is an accusation.
What's that?
All it would take is an accusation, and you would destroy this ministry.
Well, it would.
So it's a
if that's a
protection
problem,
thing.
then you could
Yes,
take.
it's safety for the
it's a
people that
benefit
work
to
with
them.
us.
But then, so you might have to take two. Then the same thing could arise if you had one adult driving the van with 14 children in it. You're going to have two in there.
No, with 14 kids, you don't have that problem because you have a multitude of kids.
Okay. Well, so you told us you would have a minimum of two people there. So you would have two people in the van, right?
But I have to still have somebody back at the facility.
Okay. If all the children are gone, why does somebody have to be back at the facility?
Because you can't transport them all in one vehicle short of having one massive bus.
Oh, okay. I mean,
It's not a perfect situation, I understand.
Oh, it'd be far less than perfect.
But In your 25 years of experience, with all of that experience, I'm sure y'all have had to innovate on occasion about how we're going to work out this end-of-the-day pickup.
Well, the biggest thing is that we easily know that we would not create the traffic congestion that's been alleged on for pickup.
Well, you may easily know that, but the neighbors haven't seen this in practice yet, and it just seems to me, if you've been granted the special exception, which you have, we're really down to the final little piece, which does not seem insurmountable to me. And I really think we can find a solution to that in order to try to get these needs addressed.
Well, the biggest thing is, we already have stated, we start with a small number of kids and building up. Over the next year or two, they're going to quickly see that there is nothing to this. I mean, that would be the visible of this.
They don't necessarily buy that, and logic doesn't necessarily support that. This is a residential neighborhood. If you have 36 children there, and you have, let's just say, half, even two of them drive together, you're going to have 15 cars coming in and out at probably around the same time.
And again, we can stagger the time as necessary, because we've done that at some of our locations to help as well for congestion. So, I mean, you can stagger time. And even so, maybe over a 15-minute period, you have 6, 7 vehicles. That's not excessive traffic by anybody's standard.
It might be if it's your neighborhood.
But even in a residential neighborhood, that's not.
I feel like we're arguing, and what I'm trying to do is get to a solution, and I'm getting a sense of where I think the neighbors feel like they are. Let's think about a solution to it. If you were sitting here and you had to figure out how we were going to get the children out of the neighborhood, what is your very best solution? Can you take half of them out and have half parents come in? I just feel like this is workable. And we're doing a job we don't necessarily need to be doing, but we're trying to help you reach some kind of solution. Or I feel like, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I feel like I am.
Yeah, I guess that's the ultimate frustration, is that we'd ask for a plan, and there's not a plan that is on paper, right? And the neighbors have expressed that frustration. And I'm just being flat out with you, all right? And I hope that you see that for the last hour and 7 minutes that I've worked really hard to get to a solution for you to do what you want to do, okay? Much more than we ever do in this type of situation. We would have sent it back again normally, but in an effort to get this resolved today, because neighbors have come out, y'all have come out a couple times, really want to get this thing done. But there's not a plan in here that says anything more than, frankly, we have 25 years of doing it, we know what we're doing. I don't have any reason to doubt that, but that's not a plan. And a plan that you just suggested, well, we can stagger the pickup time. That's a plan. But that one didn't come out for an hour and 10 minutes. And so, there's nothing in here that says, I want 36 kids, they're going to come in at 3:30, they're going to leave, 10 of them are going to leave at 5:30, 10 of them are going to leave at 6, 10 of them are going to leave at 6:30. I'll have 10 cars per person. That's a plan. And so that's the kind of thing that's frustrating me, is that we're kind of pulling this out in a way that's...
In the remarks that I read at the beginning, I did offer that, by the way. That was at the very beginning of this.
Right, but it's not. But it's nothing was submitted in writing, and so we're having to interpolate this. So again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying. What is the plan? You know where we are. If you said that you'd bus them back to the school, we're done. You got an agreement. But if you want something else, tell us specifically what you're going to do. That's some compromise between allowing 36 parents to come pick up their kids and a bus going back to the school. What is the right way that is somewhere in the middle? That shows you respect the neighbors' concern, because I think it's real, and yet you're not able to do what they've said they would gladly agree to right now, which is bus them in, bus them out, we're done. So what will you do?
If we could offer, since they like the number of 25 to begin with, that as soon as that we have in excess of 25, we'll bus any remainder beyond 25 students.
Mr. Chairman, I can see why this is taking A, so long today, B, why nothing has happened with the community, because they're not speaking the same English language that I think we are. It's frustrating everybody. Can we close the public hearing?
Right. Well, well, as soon as people are done with the questions, absolutely. Yeah, we're getting there.
Would that be a possibility? I mean, you
What did you
mentioned
say? Once your
So-
daily attendance exceeds 25.
25, any excess students, we'll actually transport to an off-site location.
You're saying that no more than 25 kids per day would
have
be
somebody
allowed to be picked up at the
Yes.
site?
Yes.
That crossed my mind.
How would you police that? I mean, that seems to me like that would be an administrative nightmare. You'd have to have somebody keeping up with that as people were picked up every day. I mean, how are you possibly going to keep up with that?
No, as soon as we had that in attendance, we'd automatically be doing that, and we keep track of attendance, so that would be very easy to do.
So when attendance grows to greater than 25,
Yes.
at that point, you will start busing all the kids to the?
The excess of that, so we'll make sure,
Okay. Well, that's a proposal. So we have a proposal.
So, but before you, let me ask, are you telling us today there's just no way, it is totally impractical for you to agree, if you are allowed to have 36 children there, that there's no way you can provide that they all be picked up and all be transported back to the school for parent pickup? Is that your position? That just is totally unworkable. There's no way you can work that.
I think it would create safety issues for the kids.
Well, but that's not my question. Is it totally unworkable?
Well, anything's workable, but the question is it practical?
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Did you have anything else to add?
Not at this point, although I would mention, because the 13 to 25 was said as if it was a cap for daycares. On a 1 acre property, and even in what I handed in for you to consider, there is not an upper cap. So that is an erroneous level that was stated as being a daycare cap.
Okay. And Councilman, did you have something else to add?
I want to make sure, regardless of what we do getting them back, we are going to pick them up at the school. Is that still on the table? And truly, I think, again, we were talking about kindergartners, first graders, second graders, whatever. I think you ought to have 2 people on the bus, one for the driver and one for the kids. And if you get there and parent's not there in 10 minutes, the both of you get back to the daycare, and that's where mom and dad can pick up that child, and you can take your second group over. This is not hard stuff. This is easy stuff, and I think, again, I would propose that.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we'll close public hearing.
Okay, well, my apologies to all involved, but I did not see the first hearing, and I'm unable to participate today.
Well, the dominant issue that we left with at the last hearing was safety of the children. I think it is a compelling government issue, and I think that it is, well, while we're here, I think that the walking, the agreement that the applicant has given to busing the kids from the school to the facility, again, per the council member, has alleviated a good portion of those concerns, and I think that that's an acceptable condition. The number of kids, I mean, and I understand the neighbor's frustration because it's very, the whole conversation to me was very circular, and it sounds like we could have gotten to this point a lot faster had folks been kind of on the same page, and I'm still not sure we're all on the same page. But I don't really have, we originally said 25 kids. The applicant has said, well, after 25, he's willing to bus the excess back. The neighbor said 30, if they could handle the 36 he wants, as long as he was able to drive them back. Sounds like it's going to take some time to get up to 36 anyway, which I know that they're a little reluctant about a tiered response from this board. Seemed perfectly reasonable to me, and I think to others, to just say, well, let's try it out for a year or so, and once you get more than 25, come back. But I don't, I'm not sure what to do about the number and in the 25. I mean, my inclination is to say, until he has an enrollment of 25, that he has to bus them to the facility. And as we said in the very first ruling a few weeks ago, parents can pick their kids up. But as soon as enrollment hits 25, I think he's got to have a different transportation plan, and I think he's got to bus them back to the school or come and propose a very specific plan back to us to get to his 36. If he wants to bus them back to the school, I'm willing to give him 36 now. If he wants to not bus them back to the school after he gets an enrollment over 25, then I think he's got to come back and propose a plan. But that's just where my thinking is right now.
I listened to it, and I think you said it probably best, Mr. Chairman. The conversations were circular. And it was dancing around the issue. I can understand the frustration with the community, and he's bringing the new part of it. This is a residential community. I'm having a really, really tough time. I never got a straight answer where I wanted to be or have a straight answer from him. Now, if he wants to bus them both ways, if it's an economic issue, say it. Say it if it's dollars and cents. I can live with that. But if it's not, if it's just you don't want to commit to something, say that. These people that live in that community are entitled to it. So until I hear something a whole lot different, I'll make my usual Capital One comment. I'm going to vote no. And I hate putting it that way, but I got to have a plan because I don't think it's fair to the people in the community.
Well,
if daily attendance, until daily attendance reaches more than 25, it's okay, but after that, all the children have to be bused back and forth, essentially.
Yeah, what we...
And they all have to be bused from the school.
From the school, but,
Okay.
yeah.
And then once you get over, and you talked about enrollment, but I think what's important here is how many are actually there for attendance. So once you get over 25 in attendance, then what you're proposing is that at that point, they all have to be.
They all have to be bused, or if the applicant wants to come back with a specific plan that was not provided today, then that's certainly open to say, hey, we're over 25 and we've agreed with, I've talked to the neighbors, or I haven't talked to the neighbors at all and I don't want to bus them back, but I'm going to have a 3-tiered pickup time and there's going to be no more than 10 people, coming and going over this 30-minute period. Something that's specific that we did not get today. That's fine, but it sounds like we're trying to solve a problem that may be 1 or 2 years out that they're completely unwilling to address at this point because maybe they don't even know. And yet I think it's important to get the neighbors and the applicant at least some kind of answer. So they all agreed to bus the kids, that it was fine and it alleviated the safety problem to bus the kids from the school to the facility. I think that to me is a requirement, number one, as part of the transportation plan. I think that how the kids get home impacts it still has a safety component and impacts the number of kids that I would be willing to vote on to be there. And the neighbors have said that 36 is acceptable as long as they drive the kids back. The applicant said, well, he'd be willing to do that over 25. So he basically said, hey, 25 is not a terrible cutoff in terms of addressing the need for something different after, once you get over 25. He said, well, yeah, I can see that, to alleviate some of that congestion concern, which also impacts safety, that there could be the need to have a different type of solution. And so what that is, I don't know. And so that's why I'm saying if attendance is 25, he can do as we did in the initial order, which is, and we can read the initial order if there's another motion, but until there's 25, he buses them in, and however they get home, he can either bus them back to the school or the parents can pick them up as long as there's 25 or fewer kids there. But as soon as there's more than 25, he has to bus them all back to the school for pickup or appeal back to this board with a specific plan. And that means he may come back in a year and a half or a year or 6 months and say, hey, I've got 30, it looks like I'm going to have 30 kids now, and this is the plan I want to do.
So I like that. Here are a couple of questions I have. One is, I foresee a situation in which one day you have 26 people, kids in attendance, so you're over the 25 number, and then it drops back down to 25. That I have a concern with. Are we saying that the first time, if at any point it hits more than 25 children, that at that
I'd say
point
when,
you
as
have
soon
to
as,
take them back?
I would say it's when the average attendance for the week hits more than 25 kids for the first time, he needs to address the issue.
Okay, so it'd be the average, okay.
And because that's, if 26 show up one day and 24 the next day and 25 the next day, I don't think that's to me, I'm not going to get, that's not my problem. Don't see that as a problem.
So it's
But if
the
it's
average.
26, 27, 28, 28, 28, you're over 25, you got to address it.
Okay, if it averages more than 25 in 1 week after that,
Then he has to address it. And he can address it by what I'm thinking about crafting, again, y'all help me out because I'm just talking aloud and thinking this through, trying to get to an answer, is that as soon as that average weekly attendance hits 26, then he has to bus all the kids back or appeal to this board with a specific other solution to go to his 36 students.
If you make that a motion, I would second it.
Yeah, and I can support that. Let me suggest one amendment, which is I think that it should be, to eliminate any misunderstanding in the future between the neighbors and the applicant, that he be required to keep, or it be required to keep a daily log of children who attend by their name and the time they arrived and the time they left.
Okay. Okay.
What? Did I hear correctly that they could be refused access to where they're picking up and taking back? Did I hear that correctly?
Are you talking about at the school?
At school, yes.
Yeah, our public hearing's closed, ma'am.
Yeah,
Unless you want to have it reopened.
I just need that answer because I would like to have that addressed by us, actually, because whether or not, if the school says no.
Right.
I mean, there needs to be some hook.
Well, I think to me it is, I mean, here, I'm saying, and they can bus them back to
some place, but there's got to be a location.
There's a church in
to a location, the school or another acceptable location to the applicant. I mean, it's their choice where they arrange to have the kids. But now, and that may be when they
they got a safety issue if you don't know where you're going to be or where you're not. We're going to pick them up.
Right. But that's something that they negotiate with their people. I'm not worried. I mean, I'm trying to address the safety concerns for the neighborhood, and it's his burden to provide for the safety of his children, which I think, again, they have a long history of doing that, so that's not a worry right now. Yeah, that's right. So, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like I said, I don't know where. All right, so I will move that we amend the order of November 21st, and the amendment, the order continues to read, the appellant must comply with parking requirements set forth in the Metro Code. There should be no on-street parking. Signage is restricted to that which is allowed by Metro Code. Outside activities are limited to the backyard. If in the future the use expands beyond a religious-based after-school program and summer program, or if the scope of those programs change, the appellant must reapply for a special exception. The appellant must provide transportation from the school, Tusculum School, to the facility for all children arriving at the facility. If the average attendance on a weekly basis ever hits 26, the average daily attendance ever hits 26, then the appellant will also bus all children to an agreed-upon location, be it the school, church, or other facility outside the neighborhood. With those conditions, the maximum number of children allowed to participate on any daily basis, or to be at the facility at any one time, is 36. And should the applicant hit a weekly, what did I say, a weekly daily average?
Right.
Of
A weekly daily attendance average.
a weekly,
36
yeah.
or greater.
So should they hit a weekly daily attendance average of 36 or greater and wish to come back to this board to propose an alternative pickup transportation plan, they may do so in the next 3 years without an application fee. The applicant will also keep a daily log of children present and provide that to the council member as permitted by privacy laws in terms of specifically number of children in order to help the neighbors understand the scope of the growth of the facility.
And so that I understand this, what you're moving is, once the weekly daily attendance average reaches 26, thereafter, then you have to either take all the children back.
They're bussed in, they're bussed out, or they come back to us and say, here's specifically how we can allow parents to pick them up at our facility on a scheduled basis or time basis or what have you.
Right.
And
You don't get to wait and see if the average goes back down.
No, you need to
get that average.
You need to come up. So they will have plenty of time, and if they want to do it before then, they're welcome to. So if they're getting up to 22, 23 and say, hey, I need to plan because I'm going to be at 30 next month, that's perfectly fine. The main thing is it's how do we get to an answer that we can live with, knowing that the growth is going to be over a couple of years, and still recognize that if they're going to have 36 people, they have to have a better transportation plan than they presented today.
I would like you to note that you mentioned the school Tusculum. It's my understanding that McMurray students may also be involved, and that school is very close.
So I'll amend that to say that it's an after-school program, so for whatever school the children are coming from, they will be bused from that school.
Thank you.
And bused means either by an acceptable, by a van or other acceptable means. So that's the amended motion. Got a motion, have a second. Any other discussion?
I'm going to support your motion. There was a lot of discussion about the numbers and where it came from for the last hearing, and just for the purpose of fleshing out the record, Section 17.16.170 of the code talks about institutional special exceptions, and it talks about a daycare center. In no way mentioning that number was to imply that this was not a religious institution or the sincerity of the religious beliefs, but there's nothing in the code that contemplates their exact program. And so, because this has a program geared towards kids after school that sometimes looks like a daycare, doesn't mean it is a daycare. It is a religious activity, but that's why we referred to that number, and that it was in no way to mitigate what their program is doing, what they aim to do. And so that's why I just want that to be on the record.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. All right, have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, 1, 2, 3, 5-1. That passes. Good luck.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah, all of the above.
Mr. Chairman, before
All right, we're going to need to take a quick,
Well, I would like
a
to
very
make
quick break, but also
one
need
quick
to.
announcement regarding the consent agenda. The two cases that were pulled from consent agenda, case 2019-512 and 2019-513.
Please, thank you.
The opposition on both of those cases have been resolved, so it may be appropriate at this time to move those back to the consent.
All right, then I'll
agenda.
move that those two cases go back on the consent agenda. Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Those two cases pass. Hey, guys, if everybody could be quiet, if you want to talk, please go out in the hall and continue talking out there. We're going to take a quick break, and we also will have a quorum issue about 4:15. And so if you are late on the docket, you may want to talk to the code staff over here. If you will be first on the docket of January 16 if you want to defer. We will get to you as soon as we can, and hopefully we'll get to everybody, but I can't guarantee it.
I like it that way.
GDI.
On Alma? Yeah, I think Alma's coming. We'll give 30 seconds for Alma, and then we'll be. Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and start now.
So we'll go ahead and start with case 2019-501. This is involving property at 4901 Centennial Boulevard. It's a request for a parking variance in order to construct a restaurant. Before you is the zoning map showing you the zoning of the map is IR. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally, the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 501? Seeing none, the appellant will have 5 minutes. Obviously, Council Lady Roberts, you have no time limit, so you can speak as long as you need to, and then the appellant will have 5 minutes. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Thanks, Emily. And yeah, press your buttons.
As always, thank you all for what you do. We appreciate your volunteering for your time, and it's much appreciated. So we have been working on this project since the beginning of summer, so maybe 6 or 7 months. But the projects around it, the 3 SPs that have gone up around it, have kind of defined a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So Carrie Bringle, who has Peg Leg, who's bringing brisket to the nations, is in a little bit of a bind in that he needed 19 parking spaces. He was a little, if they had tracked together with the other SPs, we wouldn't be before you today. But because they weren't, all of the neighbors, we were in one conversation, including myself and Matt Siegel, and we were trying to figure out how to make all of this work together. So even though it is technically 4 different parcels, we've worked together to make it one working thing with it's not just about the parking. All of these groups are working together to make this one contiguous, ongoing. It's going to be amazing. I don't know how else to say this. So what we had was 3 letters. One was from across. Well, first of all, across the street, due south from this. The very first thing that they're going to start building is a parking garage. So once the parking garage is finished, that would alleviate this problem in its entirety. But we talked to the neighbor doing the LP, the SP, LP doing the SP on the east side of this project, and they are going to add Derek Bell's letter. I would love to read this into the minutes if I could. He has the property directly east. I don't think it's in that picture right there. Is it?
Councilmember?
Yes.
The one to read into the record, I think, is the one in your email. That's one from there.
That's right. So, okay. So I am going to read, I'll just read this quickly if you all have just a second. Excuse me. Sorry, I was really prepared, but the one before us went so long that I kind of found myself a little checked out. So, I'm sorry, I don't have this up. Matt, do you have it up? While he's pulling that up, I'll move to the second letter. So we have a second letter that from Michael Lamping, who is the project at 49th and Tennessee, which is north, it's kind of southeast of this project. And he is adding 19 parcels. And in this letter, he says, in completing work along Tennessee Avenue, we will create 19 parallel street spaces. We anticipate these spaces to be available in March of 2020, but no later than August of 2020. So the problem that we have with the 19 spaces that Mr. Bringle needs is that it's just a temporary from July to July. So what we've got is the 3 adjoining parcels. This one, and I'd love to give this to you.
I'm sorry, Council Lady, is 19 the number? I mean, I thought I'd seen that it was 50.
My understanding is from the application, and I can look into it while y'all are discussing, is it 59 are required?
So let me clarify, because we
just
I'm sorry, I'm Kerry Bringle. I'm the owner of 4901 Centennial. When we first made the proposal, we did the structure as large as we could on the property to meet zoning and guidelines. We've since pared that back. This will be the original building. We're doing a small addition to it, and then and so with the new proposal or new layout, which I've got here, I'm happy to leave you a copy with. We're just going to be at 4,000 square feet, which requires us 19 parking spots.
Okay.
So is the requirement 19 or 59?
The requirement is 19 at the new, with not enclosing in that entire lot.
And then you said you have a new copy of the new site plan? If you could hand that down. And then how many, the council lady had mentioned that you have spaces that will be available in a parking garage that's being built, and can you tell me more about that? How many spaces are available there?
Absolutely. So the site plan that you saw does have one thing correct, which is that Louisiana is proposed to be turned into a one-way street, and we're adding 35 parking spots on that street. So we've worked with the developer across the street from us, and we've approved their plan, which they've already submitted to Metro. In fact, we improved on their plan because we don't have any cutaways if we get our variance, and we could add 35 spots on Louisiana. The neighbors have never had a problem with our long-term parking. There's extra parking in their parking garage, I think 95 spots or somewhere around 80 and 100 that are outside of the existing residence parking spots. We're adding 35 on Louisiana. And so there's never been an issue with long-term parking in the neighborhood being worried. What we've tried to work with, and we've worked with Matt and Mary Carolyn on in the last several months, is a short-term solution until Louisiana is completed and until that development's completed. So what we've done for that short-term solution is we've worked with Michael Lamping. He's agreed to get his sidewalks done, and he'll have 19 additional spaces with the sidewalks and the drainage in front of his development that'll be available for us. And then we've also worked with Derek Bell and the developer behind him. They'll have his parking lot done for his distillery, and he'll have 20 spaces there that he has agreed and put in writing to co-op to us. And so for that year period, while we're waiting for Louisiana to be done and for the development to be done, we have a solution for short-term parking. We've also agreed to go ahead and stripe the street on our side of Louisiana with diagonal parking spaces as long as Metro Codes is okay with it, and that will add 19 spots right there on our property.
So
He said that so much better than I could have said it. The only thing I would like to do is the only letter we didn't have as a hard copy is Derek Bell's. If I could read these 3 sentences to you, that was a much better. Is that okay if I finally found that? In cooperation with our neighbors and our neighborhood, we are working with Kerry Bringle on his new project at 4901 Centennial. To help avoid parking issues after his completion, we are willing to let him co-opt our parking spaces, approximately 20, while we build our distillery. We expect the parking to be done by July 2020 and our distillery to be completed by July 2021.
So other than the temporary, let's just say that the project was done and the adjoining parking was done, how many total parking places will that add that aren't there now? In other words, and I understand you're required to have 59. We'll straighten that out in a minute. Because I'm here for Metro Legal, it's 59, and I'm hearing it's 19, so I think I probably need to get clarification on that.
I think that they have amended their application
Okay,
or
so
their
it is
project, so
19.
we may need to hear with more details in terms of what that amendment looks like. 'Cause based on what I saw, it was 59.
So.
Based on the
so
application that was filed, it was 59.
It's legal, it's your position that it is correct that they only need 19, because that's a big drop.
In accordance with the newly submitted site plan that Mr. Bringle referenced, only 19 would be needed. To be
Okay.
clear, if the board considers a variance for 19, and if the board were inclined to grant a variance for 19, 19 is all the variance they get, and it's going to be predicated on that site plan. If for some reason, and this doesn't seem to be the case, of course, but if they chose to come up with a different site plan, they're sitting on a variance for 19. If they need more than that, they'd just be buying themselves a trip back to the board. So that
Okay.
19
But it's
is
19.
predicated on the newly submitted site plan, not the original one from a couple of months back when the case was initiated.
Okay, so how many total would you, and you've said it, but if you can just recap it for me, how many total will you have when all these other projects are completed, and how much of that is garage versus on street?
When our project is completed, we will have 35 brand-new parking spots on Louisiana. So they'll be diagonal on both sides of the street, and that's adjoining our property. When the project is done, the apartments across from us, they will have an additional 95 that will be available south of Louisiana.
So they'll have 95 over what codes.
Over what codes is required.
For their apartments.
Right.
So for retail, if they have retail, there'll be 95 shared spots for their retail and whoever else can park there.
In the parking garage.
And then also with Michael Lamping's project, that will be another 19 down 49th.
So the next one he's talking about is the one, if you're looking at the picture, the bottom right picture. So directly south, he's given them 85. To the bottom right side of the picture is another 20. If you go up one going towards Centennial, right there is Derek Bell's property, that's another 20.
So with Derek, if you add Derek Bell's, which we'll have temporarily, then, that's another 20. There's a net add of 149 of the 3 projects that I mentioned in the neighborhood.
Do you all have a formal agreement with these other property owners regarding the temporary parking needs or long-term parking needs?
We do, and we've got all those letters here today.
And that's what I said.
Oh, yeah, I saw the letters. I just meant like a formal agreement, like a contract.
We don't have a contract. We do have letters of their commitment.
So if you're adding, if there are 149 spaces coming online, but is it not also going to be the case that there's going to be additional development that is going to also have to have parking so that? There
is another development that is east of this project behind Derek Bell's Distillery. They are building 350-some apartments. They're also adding additional parking in addition to what their residents need. So they will be adding another 85 to 100 spots for the neighborhood.
That's the public retail.
And that's public.
1 hour free.
They've parked what they had to park to have the beds, but they've also parked an additional 85. We saw this problem.
You're saying there is a significant number of parking over and above code
Correct.
requirements for all the future development.
Correct,
You're
because-
not borrowing on
No.
parking spaces that need.
What happened to us was I needed somebody to develop north of Centennial. So when Nathan Lyons came in and wanted to develop Frothy Monkey, I didn't have any clue that was going to be the epicenter. So he underparked. We don't have enough parking north. So since then, I've learned from my mistake. It wasn't really a mistake. I needed somebody to be a pioneer. And so now what we're doing is every time we're asking for an abundance of additional parking to offset the what happened initially with Frothy.
The request on the original was 59 spots or 50 spots. I don't know what Jay put in, the engineer put in. That was if we close in what's under the canopy on this piece of property. We would like to, to John Michael's point, we'd like to, if we're limited to 19, that may limit future development or us closing in part of that canopy. So I don't want to sell us short and have to come back. We are adding, like I said, in the neighborhood between the 3 projects, there's 149 additional spots.
So what is the specific ask that you'd like for us to?
Stay with the 59.
I'd stay with the 59 so that we don't have to come back.
Yeah, because we have it.
And when we've got the parking in the neighborhood, this is a hardship property. It was a blight on the neighborhood. We've since cleaned it up. If we have to put parking on the property, what it'll do is just negate and eliminate street parking. It'll actually take parking away from the neighborhood if we're forced to put parking on this property, because we'll have to have an ingress and an egress on the property, which would then eliminate a lot of street parking that's available or that we're making available.
It sounded so much easier when it was 19.
Yeah.
Can I speak on
But
behalf of
you're saying you still have,
An abundance.
Council Lady, you're confident that regardless of whatever else is built and their requirements, you're still going to end up with a net parking surpluses above 59?
It is my hope. And the reason I'm hesitant to say 100% because this area is constantly exploding with growth. And so every time I think I'm ahead of a problem, it sneaks up on me. But as of right now, we have an abundance of parking. And we were really suited to grow east. And so now that the property due east of him is being developed as well. And so they just added another 76 behind them, and there will be more parking going east. So yes, the long answer is yes, I feel secure today, as long as, things stay like they are right this minute.
Any other comments?
Matt.
Anything to add?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Siegel. I'm the chair of the Nations Neighbors Association Planning and Zoning Committee. We passed a resolution on this matter, basically saying that if they could come up with this kind of temporary solution in the period between Carrie's restaurant opening and some of the SPs, those large mixed-use developments that will have some of the public parking, that in lieu of a shared parking agreement or some of the things that they might be required to do to offset that parking, that we would be comfortable with it. And just to kind of give a compliment to all the different stakeholders and to the council member, they worked hard on it, and our neighborhood is comfortable with this solution.
So are you comfortable with variance of 59 spots, or would you prefer something different?
The 59 is fine.
Mm-hmm. Anything else to add?
I would just like to thank Mary Carolyn and Matt for working with me. We went to them early on this. We worked hard, and we've worked hard to get a solution that's right for the neighborhood. We're a 100% family-owned and operated business. I'm a native Nashvilleian. We've got a vested interest in making sure that this neighborhood thrives. We want to be a part of that community. It'll be a family-friendly, pet-friendly restaurant. We will encourage our patrons to walk or to bike, and we think that this is going to be a great walking neighborhood. We want to be a part of it.
The only thing I would ask the board is that just to make sure that these commitments, which are in letters and not in contracts as you indicated, are binding in some way. I don't know if that's a condition or whatever that may be. I mean, obviously that's up to you, but just some way that we can feel confident that this parking will be available for that period.
Yeah.
And how many spaces, basically whatever the required parking for what they build?
In particular, so the on-street stuff, I mean, that's public, that's with Public Works. I think it's hard to sort of get involved in that. In particular, the commitment from Derek Bell, which is the Corsair property due east. That's the letter that Mary Carolyn read orally, and I'm sure can be submitted afterward in writing, for about 20 spaces to help offset.
And Michael Lamping.
And yes.
So 20 spaces until the construction is complete, until the public parking is available is what you're asking for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions?
So the parking's not available now because the properties haven't been developed. And so this is not, though, a temporary ask, correct? I mean, when the properties are built and parking spaces are available, will any of them be assigned to your restaurant?
Louisiana will be, so if you look at the map, we're taking Louisiana, we're turning it into a one-way street. And so there will be 35 parking spots there that are brand new that will adjoin our property.
But will they be signed for your property?
I don't know if Metro Public Works will let us assign those. I don't think that they will.
But yours is on that side of the street, there'll be 35,
Yes.
And yours is the only business on that side of the street. So, I mean, they may park across the street. but
There's 35 between both sides of the street.
Yeah, 17 or 18.
So you'll have 19.
18, 19 on our side.
Okay.
Yes. And so it's not we're asking for a permanent variance. What we've done is the neighborhood had a concern about a short-term solution. We worked that out. We arranged for those spots. And so we've worked with them to make sure that we appease everybody.
Right, and so I guess, and Council Lady, if I were thinking through kind of the legal hardship, in our variance requirements, what I heard you say was that although this isn't an SP, there are adjoining SP properties of which this property is coordinating and working together to try to
Correct.
have a more global solution. So it's really acting as if it were part of this group, even though it's not technically. And so that is why we should consider
Yes.
this as a special situation.
This was, if they were
Because
all
it's-
tracking at the same time, we wouldn't be here. He's able to move faster because the other three are larger projects. If you look at it as a whole, we have we have the parking we need for all of them and then some. But he's tracking about 12 months behind the other two. His doors will open in July, and they won't actually break ground until July. So because of the lag time, it looks like we have a shortage of parking. But I made all of the shareholders sit down at a table together, and we worked it all out together as if we were looking at this entire project as one whole instead of 4 SPs. And it works great until something like this happens.
And you should have in the record letters from 3 of those stakeholders giving 100% support.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Council Lady, I think there was one objection that we received from
Miriam
Drennan. Have you spoken with Ms.?
I speak with Miriam on topics a lot. I have not spoken with her on this specific topic, but I did address it immediately. So when I knew that she had a concern about this, that is, we started on Monday getting all the shareholders to start writing letters saying that not just were they going to, in theory, give 20 parking places each, but they were going to do it in actuality. And so that's why you have the letters that this would far exceed what she was asking. Her concern has not only been addressed, we've now eliminated it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Did you all have anything else to add? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Thoughts?
Fair enough.
I will anyway.
Yeah, I do think that, it is nice when folks coordinate their efforts. And it does sound like that there was a lot of coordination.
Make a motion we grant.
What?
Make a motion that we grant.
Are there any other thoughts or concerns?
I'll second it.
So have a motion and have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes 6-1. All right, good luck.
And just to clarify, is that for the 59? Yes. Thank you.
So when she gets the phone call, she can't come back.
And good luck.
Next case for the board to consider is case 2019-505 involving property at 1203C Lillian Street. This is a request for a variance from the sidewalk requirements in order to construct a single-family residence. Is the applicant here on case 505? Go ahead and come to the front table, please. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property as R6. This is the aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant and finally the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 505? Seeing none, the appellant will have 5 minutes. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Yeah, just press a button.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Gennady Kabulov, represent Cygnus Construction at 2139A Utopia Avenue. So Cygnus Construction purchased approximately half of the lot originally addressed at 1202 Fatherland Street, which backs up to Lillian Street. And an HPR was filed on the lot, and Cygnus is building a house on the Lillian Street side, which is 1203C Lillian. And Cygnus is not performing any work or improvements on the existing residence at Fatherland, at 1202 Fatherland. So in order to obtain a building permit, Cygnus was required to show sidewalk improvements on Fatherland Street in addition to Lillian Street per the zoning law, because it's an HPR lot, even though Cygnus is...
Who told you that you had to pay for Fatherland too?
The zoning examiners.
Because that's not what the planning recommendation says. The planning recommendation says says disapprove as the applicant has the option to contribute in lieu for the property frontage on Lillian Street. And it doesn't even talk about it being part of Fatherland, the planning department's recommendation. So do we know?
I'm sorry, I was talking to somebody else about another case.
Oh, well, what he's saying is it's one of these things, it's one of these lots that kind of fronts Fatherland and Lillian, and they're just dealing with the Lillian side. And
It looks, based on the aerial photography, it looks like it fronts Lillian. It looks like there's another lot behind it with two houses on it that fronts Fatherland.
well, but I mean, he's saying that the zoning examiner said he'd have to pay for Fatherland, but the planning department recommendation only says Lillian. So I guess that's what we're trying to figure out, is what he's really responsible for, if we can.
If the lot fronts only Lillian, I think they would only be responsible for Lillian.
Yeah, the original lot.
The only caveat to that is, of course, Mr. Chairman, if it's a through lot and they're developing both ends of it, which it does not appear to be, but if it was a through lot, and we see those sometimes in certain parts of the city, then they would be on the hook for both frontages in that scenario, not unlike if it were a corner lot. So if it's not a through lot, but a standalone lot that merely faces Lillian, does not own the property that faces out to Fatherland, then it would just be an exposure to the sidewalk requirements on Lillian. The appellant is probably in the best position to speak to that, since it's his property.
Yes, so Fatherland Street was the original lot, so I think it fronts Fatherland. And then when the HPR was filed, we are now building a house that will front Lillian Street. So,
But the two units of the HPR include one facing Fatherland and one facing Lillian, is that correct?
no, there's an existing residence on Fatherland Street that we're not touching. It's just...
But will be one of the two units of the HPR?
Correct. Yes.
And the C lot actually touches, meaning the common area touches both Lillian and Fatherland, correct?
Correct.
That's the analysis that would have yielded the zoning examiner making the determination that this particular HPR development does in fact trigger the sidewalk requirements on both Fatherland and Lillian.
And is there a sidewalk existing on Fatherland?
Yes, there is. But we were required to show improvements to that sidewalk. I have the sidewalk plan that we submitted to Public Works to, for approval. But since we're not doing anything on the Fatherland side, we don't see any point in improving the sidewalk, since our building, our construction work is only dealing with that house on Lillian Street that we're building.
Okay. So is there a sidewalk on Lillian Street?
There is not currently, so that was actually another point I wanted to...
Were you all going to build the sidewalk on Lillian Street, or did you want to pay the in lieu fee?
Well, when we pulled the permit, we showed us building a sidewalk on Lillian, but after we started construction, there are some topographical challenges there, and we would...
Or to pay the in lieu fee?
Correct. We would prefer to pay the fee on Lillian.
Are there any other existing sidewalks on Lillian?
Not in that vicinity. I didn't see any. There's a very steep hill on our side of Lillian, so you look around, there's really nothing there.
Any questions? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
So essentially, we just want to make sure that we do not have to improve the sidewalk on Fatherland, and then we wanted to make sure that we can pay the fee on the Lillian side and which fee standard we would be held to, because I understand it changed recently. I don't know when, but there's I think the current fee structure says 3% of the construction cost, or, the linear footage number, but I just wanted to confirm which standard we would be held to on the fee.
Although not pertinent to the board's analysis, it's $152 per linear foot unless the construction cost multiplied by 3% yields a smaller number. The appellant is then on the hook for the smaller number. Case in point, if it's a $100,000 project, they'd be on the hook for $3,000 under that analysis, compared to a typical 50-foot lot frontage at $152 per linear foot would yield an amount of $7,600, so they get to pay the smaller amount. Nothing the board has to worry about, nothing the appellant has to worry about today. Either way, they pay the smaller amount.
Anything else to add?
That's all I have.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. I got a letter from Councilman Withers saying it's a double-fronted lot with an existing house on Fatherland. I agree with the applicant. There are topographical hardships that prevent constructing sidewalks along Lillian. Urge the board to require the applicant to pay the in lieu contribution to the sidewalk fund for the pedestrian benefit zone as part of this building permit. And he didn't specifically say Lillian and Fatherland, and planning department basically said disapprove it because he can pay on Lillian. So it seems like that Lillian is the side that should be paid on this based on those two recommendations. So I'll move that. Yeah, well, let me say, because I think that we actually, in order, because the zoning administrator has said that this is one parcel with two fronts, that we actually have to recommend a variance for the sidewalk requirements and require that this applicant pay the frontage on Lillian Street, and that should Unit 2 of this HPR, the one Unit 1, the building that faces Fatherland, apply for a permit, that they will be responsible for any trigger on Fatherland. That we're not excusing Fatherland from this permanently, but just the obligation of this applicant for Unit 2 on Lillian Street. Have a motion, have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next case.
Next case, 2019-506, involving property at 2048 Castleman Drive. This is a request for a variance from the front setback requirements to construct a single-family residence. I would note for the board, there should be an email before you from Councilman Pulley requesting a deferral on this case so that the applicant can work with the councilman neighborhood, but I believe that the appellant wanted to make the request that you go ahead and hear it today. So I guess y'all can make that determination, and if you determine that you want to proceed, then I'll present the case.
I'm sorry, you said the applicant wanted us to hear?
The councilman has requested a deferral so that the applicant can work with the neighborhood. The appellant would like to proceed, so it's up to the board to determine how you want to proceed, and if you want to hear the case, I'll present the case. Otherwise, we'll defer it.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear just briefly from the applicant just why it's compelling for you to hear it today, because it's extraordinarily rare. In fact, I don't recall us ever hearing a case that the council person had asked for a deferral. So if you could tell us why you'd like to have us hear this today. I'm happy, because you've waited a long time to say that. Happy to hear that.
Yeah, my name is Michael Shears, and my address is 5825 Old Harding Pike. I represent the owner of the property, and she requested that I go on and try to come and talk to you all about it today. So that was the main reason for me being here.
Okay. And just per our, it's not necessarily a rule, but just out of courtesy to council people, we've, ever since I've been on this board, have, at the request of council members, deferred cases to work out a compromise, which, again, often, if you can get council member agreement and neighborhood agreement on a case like this, then it is usually a lot smoother sailing. So
You may be substantially hampering your chances of success by not deferring it.
Right. And
Is that fair to say?
I mean, am I allowed?
Sure.
I think the reason that she wanted to go on and do it is this, what we've got in this situation, as is, what she would like to do and what she would like to build works just fine. She doesn't have to have it, but with the way that the code reads and what would be required is kind of an unintended consequence of how this lot is set up. So
Right.
I think it's not, I
So it sounds-
think she thinks that actually this will help the neighborhood as opposed to be something that would be controversial.
Okay. Well, and it sounds to me like then that if it's an easy sell, she can easily sell it to the councilman, and then on January 16th, which is our next meeting, it would be something. It sounds like she has options to build on her property now, should she choose, and if she wants to do a better solution for the neighborhood, then based on the councilman's recommendation, then if she would work with him and have something worked out on the 16th, then that would be, again, much more likely to.
Okay.
Make a motion to defer.
So have a motion.
Second.
Have a second.
I just want to say, is there any opposition? I didn't see any opposition.
Yeah, was there opposition to this case? No, there's not.
Was there opposition in the board packet that we know of? There is one back there.
I had just a question regarding the rear offset rather than the frontage.
Okay. All right, so. Yeah. Any other, have a motion and a second. Were there comments on the motion? Okay. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 5-2. All right, so we'll see you back on the 16th.
Okay.
Next case, 2019-507, involving property at 2436 and 2440 24th Avenue North. This is a request for a variance from the requirement of duplex eligibility, or in the alternative, a variance from setback and building envelope requirements in order to construct 2 single-family residences. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 507? Seeing none, Mr. Bain, you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address. Oh, nope, first I need to make the presentation. This is zoning map showing you the zoning of the property is R6, and the lots are the one that is in red and the one beneath it. This is the aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area, site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally the current conditions of the property. So now, Mr. Bain, you'll have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Cleveland Bain. I'm an attorney with the West Nashville Law Group, 4800 Charlotte Avenue. Interesting situation that we have here. I don't know if we'll encounter another one like this anytime soon. My clients began to develop this property. It was going to be an HPR lot, so they hired a surveyor. And during the initial survey, we identified that there is a duplex, as shown on the site plan that's shaded there, that is encroaching on our property line by 17 feet. Essentially 2/3 of the building is built over our property line.
What's the address of that building? I mean, it says you guys have 2436 and 2440. So you have two.
I believe that is proposed. Now it is 24th Avenue North because we had unimproved property.
So I guess, well, and I'm sorry, you were going to go there, I think, but so there was no address to this property. It's unimproved property. And how could it possibly have been discovered that the thing sat in the middle of the property line? I mean, this is one of those, isn't this one of those plats, I mean, one of those like 25-foot lots or however wide it is, where really there were two of them put together, and there, I mean, I don't see, anyway, go ahead and help me get to an answer on this one, because I've never seen anything like it, and like you said, we may not ever again, and you got a tall hill, so start. I guess I'd say start climbing.
Start climbing.
Is there common ownership between the lot in which the encroaching building is located and the lot with respect to which you're asking for the variance?
No, sir. Okay. No, sir. That's owned by another company altogether. And so I think to answer your question, Chairman, if you can visualize this, and it may show there on the conceptual site plan, you have the duplex, and then there's a vacant lot, and then Metro owns all that property over there. It's the Potterfield Cemetery. So it's not like there's a improvement, vacant space, and improvement. So it's this duplex that's encroaching, and then there's this ton of land that abuts to the Metro property. And the reason that it was only identified at this time is because I would say that it hasn't been surveyed before. The original Buena Vista Heights edition, which was the original plat on this, which I have with me, was from 1892. So this platted subdivision has been around a very long time, and it is just now recently being developed. So what we see a lot of times in newly developed areas, you encounter these types of issues. And this duplex in question that is encroaching has been there for quite some time. So to add another wrinkle onto this.
But what is the address of the duplex? And does the duplex belong to the lot? I mean, I guess
2318 24th Avenue North.
20 what?
2318.
So how are y'all going from 2318 to next door 2436?
I don't even know if those addresses are correct. Usually Metro assigns addresses to these after the HPR documents are filed. So I don't know if the surveyor put that address on there or not, but
I guess one of the things that I'm having trouble with, because it's hard for me to see context with this, because I don't know what that lot, and I say below it because I'm just referencing the drawing, but the lot below it, there's no data or detail. Well, that helps a little bit, but I mean, I guess I just don't understand.
Can you show the area again?
I mean, I guess if you own the lot, if you own the lot that had less duplex on it, I could see where you might say it encroached, but and I still don't. I guess you'd say the duplex has an address, but
we own that lot that the duplex is sitting on.
Well, why is it not your duplex? If you own the lot, what lot do you own? Because the duplex is sitting on, the duplex is 3/4 on the lot that you showed where you wanted to build 2 more houses, but it's 1/4 or on the lot below it, and you said another company owned the lot below it, but who actually owns the duplex? I mean, who's?
The company that owns the lot to the south of this owns the duplex. They just built it over our property line years ago.
But they never owned that property. They never owned your property.
No, my clients owned this for years.
Have you
addressed your clients owned it for years, then why did they not make a claim against the duplex years ago?
I have no idea.
I mean, I guess, and at what point? I mean, these are a lot of, yeah. All right, keep helping us understand this, because, it's maybe a little clearer, but it's still kind of muddy. So I mean, and again, I guess what I'd like to see is some ownership history of both pieces of property, so I know what the history is of each of those pieces of property, because on the surface, this looks like cases that we've seen before where you had two pieces of property with a building that kind of spanned the middle, and then they were going to be subdividing it and trying to build it as two parcels. That's just kind of what it looked like.
My understanding when researching this, that this duplex has been here so long that they may have an adverse possession claim against our owner. That's why I'm not in Chancery Court, because I believe they would prevail on an adverse possession claim. It's been there that long. I mean,
and so I guess the question is then, why is it? I mean, but now you said the owner of the property has owned it for how long? The owner of the property you're appealing has owned it for how long?
(2007).
Okay.
Now, you know how long the duplex has been up? Did you say you didn't know that one? Because if it has been up for 20 years, then your client may not own that whole lot now, and you may have you're going to have a different shaped lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, I don't know how big the lot is. Do you need a lot size variance? Because if it's not really I don't know. It sounds to me like there are a lot of questions that we may not be able to answer that would impact.
Mr. Chair, I think there's actually like an easier solution to this, because there's another wrinkle to this that makes this viable. Because I believe if we just had what we've discussed thus far, we would not be here. But there's an additional layer to this, and I think that this would help the board, and I think it would help the board understand why I'm here in my request. There was excess property that was just adjacent north to our property. You'll see that little shaded box there that is in green. We were under the impression that that was Metro property. It was not. In March of this year, through a quiet title action, my clients took title to that. So essentially, we have an agreement between the owner of the encroaching duplex that he is encroaching on our property, and that we have a base zoning of R6. So we would be legally entitled to come in and build a duplex legally. But practically speaking, we cannot because of this 17-foot encroachment. So what I did was I went to zoning, spoke with staff, spoke with the administrator, and said, can we just shift this 17 feet? Essentially just shift it to take into account for the encroachment, build what we are entitled to by right. And then John Michael was of the opinion, because we just got title to that land in March, then under the 1984 requirement, that it's a newly platted lot and it's not duplex eligibility. My position, and is what I'm asking the board, is not to disregard necessarily the 1984 provision, but to give us a setback and building envelope variance so we can just take what we're entitled to build by right and shift it 17 feet to take in account for the encroachment. There's a lot of stuff going on, but like when it just boils down,
now
that's
will you
the
cross
request.
a property line then, or build on that new little sliver and just?
That's our property now.
Right, but you'd be crossing. I mean,
and you need it for the side setback and for the footprint, or tell me about
yes.
Is it
yes.
just the side setback?
Yes.
So you need 17 feet. You need a variance of 17 feet on the side setback.
Yes.
Because of Because of the encroachment.
Yes. So essentially what I'm asking the board for is that variance to build what we have on the conceptual plan that we submitted in our
But is this
packet.
conceptual, where does this conceptual plan, the two houses, do they go into that little, on the map on the screen here? Now look up at the screen right here. Did they, I'd say, do they go into the green area?
If we can switch over to the concept plan.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is match the concept plan to this
Yes, it does
plan.
go into the green area.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes,
So
Mr. Chairman.
so the property line that you outline in your concept plan is really the red and the little green sliver.
Yes.
And so I guess I don't understand if we cross property lines, is that?
But we
Is
haven't
what he's asking for, if we give him what he's asking for, does that do what he?
He's still on his he's still on his.
I know he's still on his property, but he's got the same issue that the current duplex has, and he's going to build a house smack down in the middle of a property line.
But we own both properties.
I understand that, but that, I mean, you're not the first person to come here and say, well, I own two of these things and I split it and there's something down the middle like that. I mean, I just want to understand. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and if that's an issue for the chairman, I could just easily consolidate those by deed and eliminate that.
You just want to be able to build two without.
Well, I mean, that would, the 29, the lot, that this upper portion is less than 30 feet in width, so it would be an odd-sized lot.
Yeah, I think, well, I said, yeah.
And I'm not sure that, I mean, I don't know that your client really owns this part where the encroachment is. But, I mean, that's just, that would make it even an
what he had
odder
said. I guess he just wants to shift it all over and build two,
And we've got that worked out between the two property owners, so I don't think that ownership question is going to be an issue.
So is there, we just lost Mr. Poole, so I'll ask the other two lawyers. Well, what is?
He stuck his head back around.
No. What does a motion to do that sound like? I mean, it sounds reasonable to say, yeah, this is some kind of screwed up mess. You have two pieces of property, one's narrow and odd, and you're building one house on it, you're building another house on the lot that this duplex is really taken over. If you shifted everything over, you certainly have a big enough lot to do it, but one's on R6 and the other may not be, but it would be considered replatted and not eligible. And
Works for me.
Mr. Chairman, I think that ultimately the portion of the application that talks about requesting a variance from the condition regarding two-family construction eligibility, specifically the part that talks about the lot being legally created and as of record prior to August 1 of '84, is the variance sought. A variance from that particular condition of two-family eligibility, not from lot size, not from base zoning district, et cetera, but just from that is what would get you there. However, the condition to go with that would be upon consolidations of lot by deed, platting, or some other means of consolidating these two pieces of land. Upon completion of that task and a theoretical variance by the BZA, then you would have a lot that, again, as long as it meets the lot size, and we believe that it does by square footage, and the other conditions would be able to proceed with two-family eligibility.
So couldn't we go ahead and grant the variance subject to subsequently obtaining, merging the properties?
Essentially, yes.
so is that something, is what you just said, that's something that we could do today to help solve this problem?
I believe that you could.
Because it makes sense. I mean, everything about it is like, okay, we'll shift it over. You've got, and you're just kind of stuck in this situation where.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, the portion here, obviously with the variance, you're looking for the hardship. What's the hardship? This, if ever there was one, is probably the textbook example of the other unusual or extraordinary circumstance. We're all politely tiptoeing around the term from my law school exam that was about 15 years ago that I'm forgetting with adverse possession, which is nice, but I mean, the house has been there for a bajillion years and it's sitting there, what do we say, 17 feet across the property line. That's unusual. That's out of the ordinary. The property to the north shown on the map before you as 29 1/4 feet in terms of street frontage there was a lot that for many years was of unknown ownership and thought to be part of the park to the north. However, it was determined through legal action, I think, ultimately on behalf of the property owner here at the highlighted property, that it was part of their property. So that, too, makes for an extraordinary circumstance where they didn't even know they had ownership of that piece of dirt attached to the one that they did know they had. Those elements are probably what you're going to consider to see if it rises to the level of other extraordinary circumstances contemplated under the state statute.
Okay. All right.
I think it gets you there if that's where you're trying to get.
It does, and we may have to get. Well, we have, we're pushing, I guess, do you have anything else to add?
I would like to add this. Of course, I mentioned that we have support from the encroaching neighbor. I've also spoken with the neighbor that's directly in front of this. They're in support of it. And then I spoke to Councilwoman Toombs last week. I checked. I don't think that she had emailed anything in, but after our conversation and explanation, she seemed to be in support, and I have subsequently sent her another email with all the information that I provided the board, and there was no opposition here today, so I think everybody's okay with it that I've talked to.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? We'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Lawless had a motion, I think.
Well, I would ask the zoning administrator, actually, since you can't make a motion, but we would like to restate what the motion.
Do I understand that the chairman was pursuing a motion to grant the variance based upon the other unusual and extraordinary circumstances as contemplated under the state statute? Yes. Is that what I understood your proposed motion to be?
Yes. And that was actually, it was Mr. Lawless's motion.
Second.
Has a motion as a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
I think
I'm sorry, ma'am. Sorry,
just want for clarification. I think the zoning administrator also added the condition that the lots that the applicant owns will be joined together so that they have the square footage they need to build what they want to go forward with.
Correct.
So with that amendment, I support the motion.
And that's acceptable to everyone?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. All right, have a motion, have a second, have an amendment. Any other discussion or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
You'll have a hard time.
Fine, wasn't it?
The hill wasn't so steep after all.
You'll have a hard time finding one that interesting again.
Mr. Chairman, quick announcement, case 2019-511 has been deferred to January 16th. That leaves us with 3 zoning cases and a short-term rental case. For anyone still in the audience, we anticipate having an issue with quorum in around 4-ish. So just, if you want to defer, come let me know. If you want to see if we get through the next 4 cases in the next 30 minutes, then you're certainly welcome to do that. That being said, we'll move on now to case 2019-509. Involving property at 31st Avenue North. This is a request for a variance from the setback requirements to construct a single-family residence. Is the applicant here? You coming forward. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property as RS5. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 509? Seeing none, you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
James Terry, 2812 Brandwood Drive in Nashville. We own this I'm an agent for the owners. They have a 25-foot lot that's in the old Fish University plan, which those lots were all like 25 feet by 175. And the only thing bothers us, we can live with the side setbacks of 3 and 3, which gives us a 19-foot building area. But when the Metro's requirement of we have to be half of the minimum setback from 31st is 20, so we have to be 10 off Clare. That takes an additional 7 feet off our property and makes our building envelope only 12 feet wide. It's extremely difficult to build a house on 12 feet.
How far, there's kind of sort of a site plan and it shows a 3-foot setback on the side as proposed, but it shows, it looks like it's 3 feet from the street. How far are you?
No, we're sitting 25 feet back from the street.
No, on the side.
Oh, on this side over here?
How far is the start of the road?
On Claire's 3 feet, the way it's shown.
The start of the road from Claire to your home is 3 feet?
3 feet.
I thought there was a sidewalk there.
There is a sidewalk.
So is it 3 feet from the sidewalk or 3 feet from the road?
Well, the property line's actually behind the sidewalk, so it's about 3.5 feet behind the sidewalk. There's a
Okay, so
grass
there's
strip and a sidewalk right there.
I don't,
It'll be 3.5 feet away from the sidewalk?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That is shown, that is right of way, not technically the street. So it's another, that 3 plus another 6.5 feet to the back of the curb.
so that was my
Yeah, that's about
question.
9.5, maybe 10 feet.
So your home will be between 9.5 and 10 feet from the curb?
Right.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. I mean, I wouldn't vote for 3 feet from the street. I'll think about 10 feet from the street, because that all of a sudden makes it an effective 10-foot setback, not.
We already have like a 2-foot grass and a 4-foot sidewalk in place there.
Okay. Any questions? Anything else to add?
No.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Thoughts? Yeah, and that was, my concern was the drawing, which I think is misleading, because it's meant to show a 3-foot setback, but what it shows 3 foot from the street to the home, but it's really 3 foot from the property line to the home. Adding another 6+ feet to the street gives it that 10-foot effective setback, which takes away some of the safety concerns that I would have on a small lot. So I'll move that based on the narrowness of the lot and the effective 10-foot setback given the public right-of-way that we approve a variance to 3 feet. Any other comments on the motion and the second? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? 1. Passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case, 2019 510, involving property at 2610 and 2612 Booker Street. This is a request for a variance from the setback requirements to construct a duplex. Zoning map shows you the zoning is RS5. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant and finally the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 510? Seeing none, you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you. Members, Joey Hargis, lawyer with Baker Dawson, 211 Commerce Street. And to my left is Israel Kirk. He's the developer and owner of the property. And we come before you today requesting a setback variance out front from the average setback of the surveyed lots at 33 feet. We're proposing 26. And originally my client met with codes to discuss a layout that showed parking out front and was kind of given some really good advice that given the other developments in the neighborhood, if you could pull up the aerial, please, if you don't mind. A lot of it's kind of an old aerial. A lot of this is being redeveloped now. So the idea was to put the parking at the rear of the property, which would push the building a little bit closer to the street. And Mr. Kirk can talk about that.
Yeah, in my initial conversation with Lisa Butler down at zoning, she, as well as Public Works, they had suggested that we move the parking to the rear due to the narrowness of the lot. Where the home sits at 27th Avenue North and Booker, there's a proposed development directly across the street of that of 13 townhomes. The Booker Street itself is already a very narrow street to park on. Building 2 homes on this lot narrow itself, the thought process is that tenants would more than likely park on the street. The street already is congested and safety concerns already, so moving the rear parking we would need a front setback reduction. So after talking with her, that's where we revised our site plan to move the parking to the rear and came before you.
And while we're here today, kind of give you a little bit two issues that you have here. One, you've got a grandfathered 2-family dwelling in RS5, and that's why Mr. Kirk's allowed to build 2 back under the zoning code. But really, actually, functionally, the existing house is non-conforming to both front and side setbacks. Mr. Kirk's proposal will bring the side setbacks into compliance, which the house currently sits 4 feet from the property line. It'll be 5 to conform. And the existing residence sits at 29 feet, 3 29 feet 4 inches from the road, and we're actually requesting to be 26. So the functional reality of the variance request, although the Codes Department's doing it right, it is on the average of all the homes. The reality is we're only encroaching 2 feet beyond what exists today out front.
So you're 2 feet further from the road?
2 feet closer to the road. Yes, sir. And good news, we will build sidewalks as required, so we're not asking for any type of sidewalk variances or waivers with that. Now, keeping it brief, our legal hardship are twofold. One, the exceptional narrowness and shallowness of the lot, given that once you apply the setbacks, it's 50% of the lot area is taken up in the required setbacks.
So that's an active, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, that's an active alleyway back there they'll be going in and out of?
It is.
Okay, and someone else is already doing that apparently from what I'm seeing here off of Batavia?
Correct.
Okay.
Would the same hardship exist regarding the shallowness of the lot if you only built one home instead of a duplex?
I believe so.
And the reason I'll echo the client's argument in that the issue's not left to right. So
Right.
It's not an issue of we're not building front and back versus these duplexes will be side by side. And from the other part, Ms. Davis too, he does have a grandfathered two-family legally non-conforming duplex now. Yeah, okay. Oh, sure. Sure.
Well, and you going from a little letter duplex to an all cap duplex, I mean, this is, you got a one-story duplex that, is going to go into a three-story duplex that has, according to your drawing, a lot of amenities that impact the length of, the number of bedrooms, mudroom, that kind of thing, that impacts the choice of length, and some of that may be dictated by stairwells and other things like that, but it seems like that, like I said, it's going from kind of a modest duplex into a very large three-bedroom.
Now, if we had the benefit of the homes immediately left, those lots are double in size width-wise.
Right.
Obviously, you could pare down the overall spread of the structure. And of course, too, the setbacks then aren't as encumbering to the property. But I want to kind of give you at least the kind of comparing apples to apples, the existing footprint, what we're here, obviously. His first advice about putting the parking out front would actually create a rear setback variance, and clearly it's much more functional to pull that traffic at the rear of the property and slide those forward.
Okay.
That's all we have.
Any questions? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Nope.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Thoughts?
I think my question sort of indicated what I was thinking. I think I've said this before. I think certain horses aren't built for certain courses, and I kind of feel like this is a self-imposed hardship by the design of the home. I understand that it's grandfathered in, but what's replacing it isn't really the same as what currently exists today, so I don't see the justification for the setback variance.
It doesn't look like anything in the neighborhood, does it?
That's not wide enough. I mean, change happened, so I don't. Talk to the mic. That's not actually why. I think houses change over time, as we all have seen, so I don't object to the design of the house. I think it's a lovely design. I just, this lot isn't, I don't see a variance in this case other than one that was self-imposed by the design.
Yeah, it did, and that's why I was saying it is replacing a duplex, but if you look at the plans, which again, I don't have an issue with, the plans are very common to what we see being built in Nashville, and I understand that, but there were a lot of choices in there that dictated where it went, which, was, there currently exists a duplex that might be asking, I think, it was mentioned that it would be in, it's not meeting the setbacks by a foot on each side, so it couldn't go back exactly like it was based on the side setbacks, but it's still a much different choice. So I understand that. Any other thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking I don't see a line of people out here objecting to it, and I haven't heard from Mr. Taylor, the council member, so I think we should consider that as well.
Okay, all right.
So I wasn't sure that I followed the narrowness or shallowness of the lot. Did anybody else? I'm looking at the plat. It looks like it's pretty typical of the adjoining lots. That was one thing I noticed.
My thought, or my guess was that because it's a grandfathered duplex, it may be a narrow lot for a two-family lot, but that may, it may look like the others. Others are single family, but this is a grandfathered duplex, and so that's why he's saying, well, for a duplex, it's a pretty narrow lot. That was what I heard, but I'm not speaking.
I understood, maybe I misunderstood. I thought moving the parking to the back was the issue for needing to push the building forward. That was what I got.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to, because I suspect maybe is there a variance that Ms. Davis thinks is appropriate? They're asking for 7 feet. Do you just feel like there's not a hardship and it's not appropriate?
So honestly, that's the latter. I don't see one. But, in the spirit of compromise, I think if it was somewhere more in the middle, then I probably would support that.
I would suggest that the variance be given that they can just have the same setback as the existing residence. They're saying it's only a 2-foot difference. And if it matched the existing residence, it seemed like it could work for them, and it wouldn't be much different than what's there now.
If you make that a motion, I would support that.
I will move exactly what I just said.
So it would be a 28-foot setback, a variance of, they're asking for 7 feet and you'd give 5 feet.
That's correct. But I don't want to get into the actual, I just want it to be.
Well, I think it says 37
Setback is where the existing residence is now located.
to the existing home. Approximately 5 feet setback.
I would support that.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck.
Is the applicant here on case 515? Mr. Chairman, this would be appropriate for the board to determine whether you want to defer this case due to the applicant's failure to appear. 515, yes. Are you the applicant for 515? Warren Street, yes. Okay, go ahead and come forward then, please. This is property at 933 Warren Street, variance request from the side street setback requirements to construct 2 single-family residences. Before you is a zoning map showing you the zoning of the property is RS 3.75. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. Site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally the current conditions of the property. Are you here in opposition to this case, sir, or are you here for the next case? Right. So you'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Very good. This is an appeal.
If you'll please identify yourself by name and address.
My name's John Hood, business address 2805 Columbine Place. I'm here representing the owner. This was before you in April, and they're asking for a variance in the setback requirement off of the side street, which they've been told is 20 feet. Typically on the infill lots, it's half the base zoning setback, which in this case for RS 3.75 is 20. So usually you would get a 10-foot side setback, but apparently they went through permits. And of course, the setbacks on corner lots can be interpreted in various ways, but they said that the neighboring property, and by neighboring, they mean across the alley, didn't have a rear setback towards the alley. So that's why we're here, trying to get just what we would usually be able to get, which is a 10-foot side street setback. And we've got, when they were last here, you were trying to get them to state a hardship, which I think is the extraordinary and exceptional condition of the other houses on Jackson Street being less than, some of it, it's an average of 8 feet from the street right-of-way. So it's, and plus, 2 of the other properties, one of them at 1105 and one at 1107 were granted in 2006 setback variances of, to allow them to build 10 feet from the right-of-way. So I think that we should be able to build 10 feet from the street right-of-way here without much of a variance at all, I think. So the character of the neighborhood, they're all close to Jackson Street. You know, the rhythm, the flow of the street, I think would be disrupted by having to come back an additional 10 feet from the 10 feet side setback off of Jackson. And that's...
So did you see the original case? Did you watch the original case?
Yes, I did.
And has anything changed from the original arguments?
There, you couldn't get a hardship out of them. And, you know...
Well, he stated a hardship, and some of us believed it, but not enough to pass a variance. So, I mean, I guess I'm not...
When I watched, you know, the last of it, and I wasn't here, but you were trying to get them to state a hardship and then come back and talk about the 2 blocks to the north and the 2 blocks to the south.
Right, and they did that, and the board didn't believe that it was, by a vote, didn't believe that that hardship was met. So what's...
The meeting I saw from April, that you know, at the very end of it, you said, come back, tell us about the next 2 blocks, and...
Right, and he did that, and he didn't get enough votes to pass a hardship. He never got a, I mean, if he had had gotten a variance, you wouldn't be here. It's less than 2 years. He didn't get a variance. So he was not able to convince this board by 4 votes that there was a hardship. So what I'm asking you is, what's different? And is there something compellingly different from what we heard 6 months ago that would warrant us to look at it again?
Well, just the character of the neighborhood, the extraordinary circumstances of the all of the properties being 8 feet, an average of 8 feet from the Jackson Street right-of-way. It seems like we would be able to get the typical half the front setback, which in this case is 20. A side street would be 10 for this lot in order to
When you say typical, are you saying through the codes office or through, I mean, because we don't, there's nothing typical about it from us, but I mean, you're saying it's a code thing?
That's the setback you would usually get on a corner lot is, of course, you've got street average for the front, but typically the side's going to be half the base zoning setback.
And the base zoning here must be 40 then?
20.
That's how you get to your 20?
Yes. And the neighboring lot that they're talking about is across the alley. I can't find neighboring in the zoning ordinance. There's adjacent, which would reach across the street. Neighboring, you know, do we really go across the alley for a neighboring, you know, to determine what my setback is on this 65-foot wide lot? And just going with the character of the neighborhood and the flow of the street, the rhythm of the street, I think that 10 foot would be most appropriate here.
Any questions? Anything else to add?
No, I think that about sums it up.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Thoughts?
I remember this case, and I don't think there's been any new compelling evidence that justifies a hardship, so I would move that we would deny the variance as requested.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye and raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Do we have?
One more short-term rental case.
One case left. All right. Applicant, come up. we got 3 minutes.
2019-481, there's nobody in opposition. This is a short-term rental appeal of a denial of a permit due to operating without a permit at 2609 Tiffany Drive. Mr. McBroom will make the presentation for staff, and then the applicant will have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Board. This property was acquired September the 20th of 2018. October 15th of 2018 was the first online activity. The host letter was sent on September the 16th of 2019. Estimated delivery would be the 23rd of September. On the 24th, an email exchange occurred between Mr. McCarthy and the zoning examiner, Robert Osborne. BZA appeal was filed on October the 1st of 2019. The ads were removed on October the 11th. 72 total stays, 8 of which were in September of 2019. There were no documented complaints on the property and no other actions taken.
And so, no, but we don't, you said 8 in September, but the 24th was when, the 23rd, 24th is around the time you thought the letter should have been received, and that's evidenced by the email exchange. And you don't really have, do you have any proof or evidence that it was rented after that email exchange?
No, sir. The host tracking only does it on a month-by-month basis, not a daily.
So we would know if there were any in October and maybe November at this point, but we don't.
We would know if there were any in October prior to the ad being removed on the 11th.
But you didn't see any of that?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, if you would state your name and tell us why you're here.
Hi, I'm Cornelius McCarthy. I live at 2609 Tiffany Drive. I moved here to pursue a career in music, and I purchased this home on September 20th, 2018. It had a in-law suite in the lower level that the previous owners were using already as an Airbnb, and I took this as an opportunity to get a little extra income to pay for my mortgage while trying to pursue a career in music. So on page 1, you can see the listing that I made for my Airbnb. The first, I started renting it in October of 2018 and continued to through September of 2019.
And so you didn't have a permit because?
So in my discussion with the former homeowner, they explained to me that everything had been set up for this property already. And in going on the Airbnb website to create an account, I was never asked to show a permit or anything like that. Truthfully, I had no idea that the permit existed until I received the letter on September 23rd. This letter really surprised me because, again, I had never heard of this permit. And I was also under the impression that I had been paying the taxes correctly.
And so what happened after you got the letter?
As soon as I got the letter, I took all the steps that, I went on online and took all the steps I would need to get a permit. So everything from page 7 through 17 that I've given y'all is all the pieces of that, the application, the mailers, the proof of my property taxes payment and my insurance payments, the floor plan of the Airbnb, signed affidavit, and the registration for my business tax and sales and use tax. And then after the weekend on September 30th, I went next door to the Department of Codes trying to apply for this permit to see if I'd be able to get it after the fact once I had realized my terrible mistake. Obviously, my application was denied, and it was also revealed to me at that point that the former owners had never gotten a permit for their Airbnb. The person who I spoke to told me that, which I had no idea about.
Now, but you said you were paying your hotel, motel tax and all that stuff the whole time you were renting it?
Yeah, so Airbnb gives, if you go back to page 3.
So that's just through Airbnb.
And then 4, 5, and 6, Airbnb states that they collect taxes, and I failed to understand that that was only one of the taxes I needed to pay. I thought that they were remitting taxes on my behalf, and from my understanding now that they only remit the hotel occupancy tax. So at that point, it was brought to my attention that I'd need to cancel the 45 reservations I had for the months of October and November. which I did immediately. Literally minutes after leaving the office, I called Airbnb and had my listing taken off. I canceled all those reservations. And then I, put into process everything I would need to do for the zoning appeal. I sent out the mailers to the 168 of my neighbors. On page 26, you can see the little sign that I got and took a nice selfie with, because what kind of millennial would I be if I didn't take a little selfie? And then pages 27 through 37 show the receipts for the payments that I have made after the fact for all the taxes that I owed. And I would just say, I purchased this home knowing that I would be relying on the income from this Airbnb to pay for my mortgage and try to make it while pursuing my career as a musician. And it's been a struggle over the last month to pay my bills without the Airbnb, and it will be a struggle until I can get the proper permit that will allow me to reinstate my listing. So, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to compliment you. I've been hearing these cases for quite a while, and I've never seen anyone make such a nice presentation about what you've done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll close public hearing.
My thought is that he has complied with what he's been requested to do. It's very similar to many of the cases that we've heard. And I would say the zoning administrator did not err in refusing to grant a permit, but that this applicant should be eligible for applying for a permit immediately.
So on Monday?
Yes, on Monday, yes.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye and raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, that passes 6-1. You can apply for a permit on Monday. You don't have a permit until you get a permit, so don't rent, don't do anything until you have that permit in hand, not on Airbnb, nothing, and they can tell you about that at codes. But you're welcome to, you're eligible to reapply for a permit on Monday. All right, good luck, and with that, we are adjourned, and we will say goodbye to Cindy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.